Welcome to D.A. Ex Machina. Together, we'll explore the writings of D.A. Roberts along with other authors, with a particular emphasis on the horror genre. We'll discuss writing, the inspiration behind horror stories, as well as the possibility that monsters might not be safely locked away in the pages of fiction. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the most recent edition, the 16th edition of D.A. Ex Machina. Joining me, as usual, is time, Steve Wildman Monrotus. And tonight, joining us, we have a special guest, Allen Gamboa. If you're unfamiliar with his works, you need to get familiar with his works because they are awesome. The guy's got an amazing career behind him. He writes from a place of authority. When he writes a scene, it rings dead on, because the man doesn't just talk the talk; he's walked the walk. So, Alan, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
After that, I don't know if I can say anything, man. Thank you. I've tripped a few times, I'll tell you that, on that walking something. Hey, thank you for having me on tonight, you and Steve, D.A. I really appreciate it. It's great.
No problem. Thank you for joining us, man.
No problem at all. You guys are always fun to talk to. Always a good time.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to a fun show. If I can share a little bit of news on us here, DA. We almost had a little snafu. We were having so much fun in our sound check, we almost missed our airtime. So, that's a statement of how fun it's going to be talking to Alan tonight.
I just happened to look up, 30 seconds.
Then we had to put our shirts back on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of ruined it for everybody.
Yep.
Oh, Lord.
Well, Alan, if you can give us your social media links, if you want to send them to me, I can post them in chat, and I can also put a banner across the bottom of the screen, so we've got directing people to your websites. I meant to ask you for that before the show, but we got caught up talking about other stuff, and it slipped my mind.
Oh, sure. It's Alan Zombie50 at Facebook.com, and then you can find me Allen Gamboa Facebook. I had a Twitter account, but got rid of it. That's about it. You can find me on Facebook. I'm not real, I'm always on Facebook. You can find me in the Written Undead on Facebook and in the Zombie Army on Facebook. Those two groups there too. And you can reach me at Allen Gamboa. Oh, not Allen Gamboa. I'm sorry. Allen Kills Zombies at yahoo.com. I'm always welcome to feedback. My wife picked that one out for me. And I see Lundy's out there talking to us.
You're already getting shade from a fellow author there.
I shared your Amazon page for your direct author page on Amazon in the chat. So everybody that's listening, please check that out. We're already getting quite a bit of love from the crowd. We have something of a tradition on D.A. Ex Machina. Whenever we get a like or a love, we always take a drink. And usually when we're drinking whiskey, that can get problematic. But we've got a love from W.J. Lundy and Josh Jones, Larry Phelps, Jacob Hayes, and Roger Peacock, all already giving us likes. Goodness. So we're already up ahead of the game, guys. Thank you, folks, very much. Oh, and another one just popped up. Tony Konopka.
Oh my goodness! I need a liver.
I may have to switch to alcohol just to keep up.
This is gonna be like my infamous live feed I did a couple years ago. Somebody had to message my wife to see if I was alive.
Awesome.
Yeah, I deleted that right away. The next morning, I was like, delete.
I've been there. The very first episode we did of D.A. Ex Machina, me, Roger Noriega, and another friend of ours named Thomas Whitney. We all got a little inebriated that night. Wasn't intentional; it just kept happening.
Well, see, I had
a couple of the shows that went like that.
I had a bottle about this. God, I can't figure these things out, man. I had a bottle about this big of W.J. Lundy whiskey that he has. And It's a really good, smooth stuff. And I drank it during the whole show. I finished the bottle, and I was dead.
No.
I was dead by the And I mean, my family all has, because my kids we have this house with all these kids that live in it, and they all told me stories the next morning. And apparently I kept nudging my wife, laughing, and she didn't appreciate that.
Sounds like my wife. Very little sense of humor when it comes to me drinking too much.
Oh, I've got a really good sense of humor, but
and no sympathy the next day.
No sympathy for a drunk. No. Nope.
Josh Dalton already chiming in as well. Thanks, Josh.
We'll give the liver a good warm up tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to switch from coffee to alcohol just to keep up with you guys.
Oh, Lundy, what's on my head? I got the air is like about 68 here, so it's nice and cold. Got the air cranked up.
There we go.
Gonna pay for that the next month, though.
Larry Phelps, drink, chug, chug. Yeah, very much so. And Josh says, "Good evening, gentlemen." Now, Alan, you write primarily in the zombie genre, correct?
Yeah, I would like to branch out. I mean, I've been trying to branch out, but yes, that's been my big thing right now.
So what really got you interested in writing zombies?
Well, I've always liked to write, and I saw Night of the Living Dead when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or something. I was in Bakersfield visiting my grandma, and I was sleeping on the couch, and there's like this graveyard in Bakersfield Cemetery that goes right through the middle of these two roads. She lived across the street from it. And so I had to sleep on the couch, and it was on that night on her little black and white TV, and I watched it and scared the crap out of me. Well, I kept looking at her big plate glass window, expecting to see these guys staggering out of the, grave coming over our house. So I didn't sleep at all that night. So that really got my interest going in zombies. And then after Dawn of the Dead came out, and I coerced my dad to take me to go see it, which he loved it. But I thought, I'd like to write something like that, and I never did. And then I started reading a few of these zombie books that were out, and when I was an adult, and I thought I think I can write that. I've always written sci-fi stories, war stories, like kids do. And I've written in school newspaper. When I was storing freight for J.C. Penney's, we had a newsletter, and I used to write a little humor column on how funny it was, but just writing a little humor column for them. So I thought I could write, and when I was working nights at work, like in a control booth, I had plenty of time to write. So I would, work on a little story here and there, and that evolved. And I started reading. When I retired, my wife bought me a Nook, and I was like, well, I love paperback books. Or hardback books. I'm not into this, and then I saw Amazon and my eyes were like, holy smokes, there are all these books out there. Out there. And I was reading I had read J.L. Bourne's. I'd in fact bought his book, and great series. Philip Nutman's Wet Work, which is kind of smart zombies. It's the dude used to write for Fangoria. He's since passed, but it's not a bad book to check out. Philip Nutman's Wet Work, if you can find it. It's worth the read. It really is. And so I saw Lundy's book in there, the WTF series, and I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great, And I'd been working on one, and at work, and I stopped working on it when I retired, and so I emailed Lundy, like a fangirl, say, hey, I really like your books, really great, or your book at that time, and the guy was really humble and nice, man. Just wrote me back, and so we had this, we sent topless pictures of each other back and forth, and well, he did. I had to tell him to stop. No, but but actually, no. We emailed back and forth, and it was really constructive and cool. And I said, hey, and he probably kills me to this day because I tell this story. But I said, hey, I'm writing a zombie story. Could you look at it? And he's like, yeah. I mean, no hesitation. There wasn't like a, And this is I think because he was fairly new. I mean, he's a great guy. He'll help anybody out. But so he read it, and he said, yeah, you got a story there, man. You should continue with it. And so I finished it up and he hit me up with an editor and a cover artist and everything, and I published it independent at that time. I was publishing it independent at that time, and he said, "Hey, we're starting a Fallon Express. Would you like to join it?" And I was like, "Oh man, heck yeah! This is awesome." And so that's how it started.
That's
and
awesome, man.
I wrote it as a standalone, which kind of painted me into a corner for a minute. And then Lindy said, "You should write a series. That's where it's at, man." And I think that was his exact words. "That's where it's at, man." Just in that tone too, because that's how he talks. And now you gotta talk like that. And so I had to write the story backwards. And you read the series, D.A. So
yes.
That's why it's written backwards, is because I had killed off a major character and ended a major plot. Well, two major characters actually. And the plot just ends, there, good ending, blah, blah, blah. So I had to go back and figure it out. Dumb. But, first time writer.
Still, the way it flows as you wrote it, though, to me, it's like you got the complete story, but there were these little like tidbits throughout that you didn't know about the other characters, and those are filling in those gaps. So to me, it's almost like you're watching a couple prequels just to explain everything you just watched. So, to me, it flowed well. I like the way it went.
Oh, thank you. I had a lot of help because my office was in our bedroom at that time, because I wrote all these books in California. This is before we moved to all the 3 books in the Operation Zulu series in California. And so we had a 3-bedroom house there, and it's like half the size of what we have here and more than what we pay for here. Crazy. Anyway, that's another story. So my office was in the bedroom. And so my wife, she was right there. So I'd run ideas by her, and she'd be like, "Well, you know what? That doesn't sound real good. Why don't you try this?" And you're like, "Oh, okay." I wasn't the genius that I thought I was. And she's actually, there's a lot that she helped me with in dose. I mean, just ideas, like, hey, that was a fun one to write. Oh my gosh. But I wanted to burn it by the time I was done with it, because I read it like twice and had to go over it, but now it's a fun one to read. I'll go through chunks of it and read it, because it's just got some weird ass characters in that one.
Generally, the only time I ever go back and reread sections of previous books is like if I'm working on a sequel and I want to get back in my head exactly how a previous scene that I'm alluding back to flowed. So that's generally the only time I'll refer back to old books. I have discovered that when I'm writing, if I get bored and I want to see how the story's flowing, there's a feature on Microsoft Word that will read it to you, read it aloud. So I'll highlight a section of text and hit read aloud and lean back and listen to it. And I've caught a lot of errors that way, but it's a little disjointed, because it's not really reading coherently. It's like, the man picked up the gun and did that. It's kind of, it's not organic. It doesn't sound seamless like a narrator.
Like Stephen Hawking reads the classics.
Yeah.
I am a robot.
Yeah.
I know.
And then Wiley, there you go. And then Wiley picked up the Bible, his favorite new toy.
It doesn't quite have that, same thing.
No. It that voice. Whenever I see, I think I watched the actor that plays Howard Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory. You imitate Hawking for Hawking, and it was hysterical. But when I was in college, I had a roommate for a while that was blind, and so he had a laptop that had Braille keys on it, and he would type, and then it had a Deck Talk speaker, the very same one that Hawking used, and it would read his stuff back to him. And so it was kind of weird, listening to that, and he would screw around and you have it just say obscene things. I'd be like on the phone with my girlfriend or something, and he would have it speak like this, this tirade of swears that would make a naval officer blush. And I was like, dude, I'm talking to my girlfriend, and she'd be like, "Who's Hawking banging over there?" I'm like, no.
My wife will do that to my daughters. text in her car. She'll text my daughter, and my daughter's car will, replay it vocally,
Right.
and she'll say the most horrible things, and it says it out loud.
That's hilarious.
But my wife's like 3 mental humor wise. She's like, no, actually, your humor is a little higher, more highbrow than mine is. So probably about 16.
Yeah, my wife tells everybody I'm still an emotionally stunted 12-year-old on my humor.
I think most of us are, makes the world go round, man.
You spend any time around cops when they're just amongst themselves, and you'll see some really. I've never been flipped off in my life more than I have from other cops.
Well, getting off topic here, when people get really weird about gallows humor, but being, law enforcement, the military, anything where you got to deal, first responders, anything when you got to deal with something horrible or just something strange that you've never had to deal with before, that just helps get you through.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten some negative feedback from a few people because they didn't appreciate the gallows humor in the Ragnarok series. Like, people wouldn't talk like that. Clearly you've never worn a uniform.
Yeah, we had this guy got beat really bad in his cell by another inmate, and we responded up there, and when we pulled him out of the cell, there's a whole story that goes before this, but we pulled him out of the cell. My partner and I pulled his pants off him, and the guy was, he was breathing for his life, just ragged breath, but we actually pulled him out of this, yanked him out of this, dragged him out of the cell to throw him on the gurney, get him out of there. We actually pulled his jeans off, and he wasn't wearing underwear, and he was, how some people are, I forgot what they call it, but there's a response when something traumatic happens and you're excited.
Yeah.
That person is. Well, this guy was obviously excited when we pulled his pants off. And we chuckled about that, but it was, when you look at it, it was horrible. But when you're in it and you're involved, it's just like, it was, and it was a pretty bad scene. And this is a inmate that we had dealt with for years. My partner and I, we dealt with this guy for years. He'd been in our unit. Because we worked in the same unit for like 12 years, his partner and I. And, it was kind of, even though the guy, was a bad guy, and just it kind of was, I hate to say that, but it was kind of traumatizing. It always bugged me, man. I always told my wife was a correctional officer, and I hated telling her about it, just because I felt kind of weak, and it bothered me for years. And then about a year ago, I was talking to my partner, and it had we started talking about stuff at work, and it had bugged him too. It had really gotten, so I felt better. I felt like, I wasn't just, but you're human.
Yeah.
So
yeah, some of the situations you either laugh or go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's worse when it's your partners, when, it's actually somebody that you care about, not just somebody you're familiar with.
I remember one time we activated the CERT team, the riot team, and we had to do an involuntary cell restriction, and the guy had stripped naked and covered himself in his own feces, and I came out of that cell dripping with it, and the rest of the guys on the team just busted out laughing. I'm like, yeah, keep laughing.
Yeah, we had to fight.
I wasn't laughing at the time, but I laughed about it in the parking lot after the shift.
Yeah, we've had to fight naked dudes with feces covered a lot. Yeah. I used to work in a violence control unit there in Pelican Bay when it first opened, and that was like working in a human zoo, man. It was just, you got these guys that are just the worst of the worst. I hate saying that, but because it just sounds like so trope-ish or whatever. But they just got guys we had a guy had stitches in his arms, tried to kill himself, and he pulled them out, bleeding and fighting us, and it's like, but I got gassed really bad one night, and I was working nights. I was doing count, and the inmate gassed me really bad, head to toe, just mixture of like a milkshake,
Yeah, slurry.
Yeah, and at that time they didn't have the procedures to get your hip.
Contaminate.
shot and all, yeah, all that stuff, and they just sent me home. They say, hey, go home, you can change, you can stay home, or you can come back. And I thought, well, I need to come back, because if I don't come back, I'm not gonna, like, get back on the horse, So I thought, I'll come back. So I went home, and I was walking through our gate, and my wife sees me through the kitchen window, and she comes out. We were newlyweds, and she's like, oh, and then I said, back off,
Stop,
get away.
Don't come any closer.
Because I was just, and it hurt her feelings so bad, and it still does to this day. She still had her feelings hurt so bad about that, because I was rejecting her, but she understands, and everything, but it's just so, of course, then I throw my jumpsuit in the sink, wash it, okay, got this stuff on it. Then we throw it in the sanitize in our dryer. I would never do that nowadays.
Oh,
I would never. If that happened, I would, but I didn't know.
I always kept a couple extra uniforms in my locker, in the locker room, and I'm not too proud to say there's not been more than one occasion where I've gone into the locker room, stripped everything off, thrown it in the trash can, and just climbed in the shower, and then went into the locker and started fresh.
See, we didn't. Pelican Bay, we don't have locker rooms, and we don't have showers. When they originally opened, they did, though, but they never used them. And they were up like in the admin and stuff, and they never used them, and they had a gym. They actually had a gym for staff that never opened. But anyway, yeah, I would never go home with all that waste,
Oh, it's nasty stuff.
Crazy.
Larry Phelps says gallows humor helps first responders cling to sanity. You have to deal with the things that mundanes couldn't cope with on their best day. He is not wrong. Yeah. I've seen some pretty gnarly stuff in my career, and I know I didn't have it near as bad as some guys. I've seen friends carried out on a stretcher, and I've been the guy that's been taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
In fact, there was one point I wound up in a neck brace for 3 months with a severe concussion. Spent about a month not being able to remember my kids' names. That was a pretty rough time. But I got past it. When I first started out in corrections, I'd come home from work, and my wife would go, "Tell me about your day." And then after just a couple months, I'd come in the door and she'd go, "Was it gross?"
Yeah. See, my wife eventually, I think I was working 9 or 10 years maybe, and then she joined the department. Mm. And actually, it was kind of nice in a way, because we could both decompress and talk about our day, and relate. It was.
That is a good deal. There's a lot of things that even today I still haven't told my wife.
Oh yeah,
I just
weird.
One, her and my boys just wouldn't understand because they haven't been there, and two, I don't want them to understand, if that makes sense.
No, I get that.
I don't want them to have to carry the baggage that I carry.
I never thought it affected me. I know they always say it does, but I never thought it affected me at all. I was always pretty good natured at work. I was always open to new staff, and I didn't mind helping somebody out, training. I had like officers that were, supervisors that were officers, new officers that I would help out and stuff, and they always, helped me out later on when they promoted, because of the way I treated them. Because I got treated bad by some old guards, and I thought, I'm not going to treat somebody that way just because I have a seniority.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's a weird thing, and you don't, like my wife says, she feels like a lot of her innocence was taken away. Her eyes were open, and they were, and I saw it after I retired. I saw that the changes that it had made in me, but I didn't feel like while I was in it that I was changed at all. I did not feel that at all.
I went from working in a corrections environment to, I was doing part-time on the road, and I was also working overnight security supervisor at the hospital, which is where I met Steve, because they wanted commissioned officers patrolling the hospital. And him and I met while I was doing that. But the first 3 or 4 months I did that, it was such a culture shock to me. It felt so bizarre that people were nice to me and genuinely were happy to see me. and it was months before I let my guard down.
Yeah.
And I just after getting used to that environment, I really don't think I would want to go back to a corrections environment. I mean, even physically if I could because of my back, but
right. I wouldn't want to anymore. I'm done. Like I think I told you before, I didn't even go back and pick up my retired badge. I just, for some reason, I could just not.
You should call them and have them send it to you.
I was like the cat on the door, man. I'm not going to go back through there. Just something. I just couldn't do it. It's not like I was afraid to do it. It's like I just didn't want to do it.
It was behind you, and you wanted it to stay there.
Yeah, it was. I'm done. And I never thought I'd feel that way. I mean, I was looking forward to retirement. Always, like, hey, it's nice to retire. But I just, I miss the people I work with. I miss some of the experiences I had, and some of the job I miss. But in the big picture, I there's a lot I don't miss.
Amen. Yeah, I miss some of the camaraderie. I miss a lot of the officers. I don't miss the politics that was played by admin.
No,
I don't miss any of that at all. We had some guides, some senior like sergeants that were great when they were on the shift, but the minute they made the transition to admin, they immediately drank the Kool-Aid and forgot all about us.
Yes,
I hated seeing that. Guys I respected deeply, I lost all respect for when they tossed us under the bus as soon as they got an admin position.
Oh yeah, no, I saw. It's the same everywhere. I was about to say I saw a lot of that, but yeah, it's there's guys that did hold the line that the promoting was really slow, and they retire as a lieutenant because that's where I always said when you promote, you always got to give a piece of yourself. They're always admin's always going to come to you and say, hey, we want you to do this. And I'm not talking about anything illegal or immoral, but just something, maybe get somebody in trouble that, it's really should just be a slap on the hand, but
exactly.
They want to get that person, out or whatever, and they'll do it. And you just, it's so. Yeah, I knew a few guys that promoted that I thought were just, aces. They still were good dudes. Other guys that promoted and you just didn't know them anymore.
Or maybe you finally met them for the first time.
Yeah,
maybe they were that way the whole time and you just didn't see it.
Yeah, that's true.
I was the kind of training officer, even when I was, corporal and then later as a sergeant. I was the kind of guy that I didn't look for someone to blame. I looked for a solution. And if somebody screwed up, as long as it wasn't something that was going to get us all dragged into the captain or director's office, then I addressed it and I said, okay, this is what happened.
Yeah,
let's fix this and let's move on. And by the time I presented it to the captains, I didn't even bring up names. I said, this happened. I dealt with it. And 9 times out of 10, they dropped it. I took care of problems with my guys. It wasn't me looking for ways to write people up. It was me looking for ways to teach people. I saw it as a teachable moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
the only time I've ever written people up is when they didn't give me a choice.
Yeah. It's a weird world, because people show their true colors. It's like it was an experience. I can't say I'm not glad I did it. I think there's things I would have done differently.
Yeah,
but,
same here.
Yeah, but I did enjoy my career. I just it's still in my head somewhere. Still looking to write that book about it. I've got a ton of stories and just like you do, DA. But and I could not stand to write about it though. For years. I retired in 2014, and actually, in Salvation, which is one of the 5 Roads to Texas books. I think it's book number 9 or 10, and that's a series I did with Debbie J. Lundy, Brian Parker, Rich Baker, Joseph Hansen, which you should have those guys on your show sometime. They're really good. AJ Powers and J.L. Bourne.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say Brian Parker?
Yeah.
Brian Parker. Okay. There's so many of us. And
I may have to have you introduce me to some of them because I don't know all of them.
Oh yeah, no. Anyway, I was gonna say the Five Roads deals with the virus that comes out, and it's they're not zombies; they're more like rage infected, and it's a sweeping story. We wrote the first book together, all of us. J.L. Bourne did the forward to it. You ever meet that guy? He's a great guy.
I would love to. I mean, I like his books.
Yeah, he lives like his books, man. He's a great dude. And a lot of people don't like, some people don't like that, but he's authentic. The dude is not phony. He's authentic, straight up. What you see is what you get. And I like that. And he'll help anybody, all those guys, they'll help anybody. Anyway, we wrote this one book together. And AJ Powers, I think, was the only one that didn't have an entry in that book. He wrote one of the sequels. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool because we had a guideline. This is what's going to happen. This is, but your characters have free reign. And my character, Rick Rainmaker and Jesse, they were prison guards. And I'd never written prison guards in my books, anything. So it was kind of a catharsis. Mm-hmm. It was a cathartic moment for me to write them. And the book their book, Salvation, starts out with them on a prison, or actually, Five Roads starts with them on a prison transport to Eureka. And then they never make it back home because of all this stuff that happens. So it's their journey to try to get back home in Salvation. But yeah, I'd never written prison. And I mean, if you read Ram's character, Jesse's character, and he's kind of disgruntled. He's getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of my favorite characters besides Doc Kagi and Raleigh Hale Morgan from the Operation Zulu series.
Yeah. I wrote all of my Ragnarok books while I was still a CO. All of the Apex Predator and all the newer books overall after I gave it up. But the Ragnarok books I wrote while I was still working for the department.
Yeah, I see that with Wiley and the rest of the characters in there. It's what I like is real your dialogue and what's going on and mm-hmm. where they're at is real authentic, and I like that. I could picture it, and I could feel their conversations. Yeah.
Well, some of the scenes were actually originally written very differently, but my wife made me go back and fix them because I still worked at the department and she was afraid I would piss people off.
I think I pissed some people off because in the Operation Zulu series, a lot of the bad guys were, one of them's an IA investigator.
I can see that.
That I dealt with, that he's one of those guys that I worked with, blood, sweat, and tears with, and then he promoted, became an IA investigator, and I had to visit him a couple times, and just
became a total Blue Falcon.
Yes, and which really surprised me. It was like, wow, But he's a senator. That's a bad guy in there. Mr. Black is just a invention of mine. But there's a lot of the bad guys in there. A lot of the mercenaries. No, the mercenaries are just made up. But the bad guys that are senators or officers, stuff like that, are usually people that I work with that were just people that irked me. They were irksome.
In Ragnarok, I did the same thing. Most of the officers are either inspired by somebody or an amalgam of a few people. Some of the bad guys were some of the less pleasant people I've dealt with who didn't have kind things to say about corrections officers. But I won't go into a lot of detail on that. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. I've had that in my own family, not my immediate family, but yeah, we've had that conversation with some of my family.
So that happened. Mm-hmm. But most of the actual bad guys were just created. In fact, some of the actual main characters were just constructs. The character of Spec 4, she was just created. I had intended the very first scene where Wiley encounters the zombies at the Roadblock, where he met Spec 4. That scene was planned to have Wiley be the only survivor.
Oh, wow.
And I found that as the banter between him and Spec 4 was tossed back and forth, I thought, well, I kind of like this character. Maybe I'll keep her around for a scene or two, just kind of see what happens. And then next thing I know, she became so integral to the plot, I just couldn't get rid of her.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like that because when I was reading that, they already killed off the private.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, she's going to die now, too. But she's a good character.
Zombie.
I like her character. Yeah. And so was that Sergeant on the Roadblock? Was that somebody?
Yeah, he was based.
I can tell.
He was based off before I won't say who the guy is because he still knows a lot of the same people I know, so I won't say who he is. But before he went to the road, he actually started out in the jail, and he used to call me old timer and ask me if I could keep up and all that crap. And he was in his early 20s, and I was in my 40s. And he would, throw shit at me, like, saying, "Oh, you're just old and out of shape. Just try to stay out of the way, old timer." Yet somehow, don't know how it happened. Somehow, every time there was a code or a major incident, I always managed to get there before him and was involved in the fight. And he showed up like a blister when the work was all done. So I don't know how that happened. I mean, I'm not calling the guy a coward or anything, but he did seem to be the last one to show up every time. And
well, he probably wanted to make sure
nothing.
Everybody got there okay.
Yeah. He was falling back to make sure nobody fell or had any accidents or anything.
Picking up flashlights if somebody dropped it.
I actually was running to a code one time, and I was down in booking, and they called the code red in one of our pods upstairs, and I go zipping up the stairs. And as I was rounding the corner at the top of the stairs, I heard ding, and I looked over, and my flashlight, my stinger, had bounced off my belt, hit the rail, and went down almost 2 floors.
Oh.
And I'm looking down, I'm getting ready to yell, and one of my buddy Brian looks up and goes, catches it, and just keeps right on running.
Man, I was running to an alarm, and I had a 5-cell flashlight. This was like in 90, I think, 91. It flipped down my ring, and it hit the floor, and the floor is concrete, of course, and it just exploded. Oh. It's like, oh my gosh, okay. Later on, someone's here. This your flashlight? Yeah. Stingers are nice.
Oh yeah, I carried that same stinger for a decade before I upgraded it. Tony Konopka says, much respect to you both. I worked the road for 21 years and could never imagine working in the jail. I brought them in and got myself out as quickly as possible. Looking forward to reading all of your books, D.A. and Allen. I share that twisted sense of humor. I can relate. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, respect to you guys, because you guys didn't know. You guys don't know what you're approaching. We knew what we had. You guys had unknown, and that. We were working with bad guys. You don't know when you. Well,
I made the transition over to the road, and I can tell you, that's a butt puckering moment when you're making that approach on a car stop.
I bet.
You don't know what's in there, and
I bet.
Fortunately, I never had a really, really bad approach, but I did stop a guy one time and called in the plate, and I waited for the return, and I waited, and I waited. And I didn't want to make the approach till I got the return. And I waited. And they said nothing. I'm like, God dang it. Finally, I just get out of the car and head up there. And I go up, introduce myself, ask the guy. And the guy's looking at me real weird. And he hands me his license and registration, his license and an insurance card. And just as I'm starting to back off, I get the return over the radio. They're like, don't approach until backup arrives. He's known to assault law enforcement. I'm like... Yeah. You could have led with that. When that indicator popped up and said caution, don't approach, maybe you should have said something then instead of waited. Josh Dalton wants me to show you the 7-cell. I gotta find. Oh no, that's not it. There it is. I collect flashlights. I've got a buddy that was retired California Highway Patrol. And we were talking flashlights one time. And he says, I got an old mag light in my closet you can have. He said, it doesn't work anymore, but you can have it. And It's a 7 D-cell Maglite. I couldn't find bulbs for it. So I called Maglite. I called their customer service number. And the guy I got a hold of, he's like, how many cells is it? I said, it's a 7 cell. He's like, read me the serial number. So I read it to him. And he goes, you've got to be kidding me. And I get this from Robert in, I want to say 04 thereabouts. He goes, these things haven't even been on the price list since 82. Where the hell did you find that thing? And I said, a buddy of mine gave it to me. And he goes, I said, do you have any bulbs for it? I can't find bulbs for it. He goes, oh, dude, we haven't carried anything like that since probably 85. He said, good luck, though. And so I called around all over the place looking for bulbs for it. And there was a tactical shop here in town. Yeah, the guy that ran it was an old retired cop. And he'd run that shop forever. And I called him and asked him if he's got it. He's like, you found a 7 cell? Can you bring that in and let me take a look at it? I'm like, sure. So I bipped over to the shop and I took that thing in there. And he's looking, he's like, holy crap, man, this brings back memories. And he's back in the days when we carried these things. And he goes, hang on a second. He goes in the back and he's back there about 5 minutes. And he comes back with a box about the size of a shoebox with about half an inch of dust on the top. And goes, yeah, I got a whole case of them. How many you want?
Holy. They cut us off
back there.
They cut us off at 5 cell because, they didn't. People were, we're getting that batons. Yeah, I'm not saying I ever saw that but that was what.
Well, there's a company that makes side handle mounts for Maglites.
Holy crap!
I could turn that 7 cell into a side handle baton.
Jeez. But then all those Maglites kind of went away with the stingers and the all the rechargeable. Mm-hmm. I ended up buying a stinger eventually, going to that, and that was nice.
I carried my stinger for probably a decade, and then I upgraded to a ProTech HL5, like 3,500 lumens. That is one bright flashlight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are so much nicer on your back.
Oh God, yeah. Well, that 7 cell, if you put it in your snap ring, it would hit you in the ankle when you walk.
I bet. Oh yeah.
It's like a Louisville Slugger with a light head attachment.
Well, that 5 cell would slap me in the ass. It felt like I was, getting ready to have a good time or something every time. Especially when you ran with it,
Makes you run a little faster. Or at least you're more excited when you get there.
Yeah, right.
Robert Miller says in Virginia, PD was on road and sheriff did jails. I'm like Tony. I was on the road and turned everyone over to the sheriff at the cells. Much respect to the folks running the cells. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, much respect to you, Robert. I mean,
Absolutely.
Like I said, you guys have the unknown. We knew, this is the bad guy. You don't know what you're getting, and much respect, man. That's just.
And in theory,
glad you're out there, brother.
In theory, our guys weren't supposed to be armed.
Yeah, in theory.
In theory.
Nothing like getting hit in the head with a sack of batteries in a sock. I have had that happen to me. Thank God I was wearing a helmet. It was a cell extraction, and the dude just clocked my whole right side, and I didn't know it till afterwards. Because your adrenaline's going. And we wear these Tyvek suits. Eventually, we went to Tyvek suits. We put them over our, vests and our jumpsuits and everything, and so you don't get any, splash on you or blood or whatever. And my whole Tyvek suit was just ripped all the way down to my boots, and the dude we're going to have cell extraction. And the sergeant said, hey, guy's got a weapon. And I was a shield man. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, neat. And the sergeant, good dude, but he was playing with because the guy had covered up his lights and everything, covered up his window, soaped his floor. It explains a lot of Alan. Soaped his floor up, made a gas mask out of cardboard and he was ready. He'd been doing this. They let him do this all day long. Okay, so first watch comes in. Hey, we're gonna extract this guy. He's got to go to Folsom or something, and they got to put him on the transport the next day. Well, somebody gets injured, they're not going to ship them off. There's a whole process. But anyway, so the sergeant's playing with the flashlight. He's got this big old bright light, and I said, hey, Sarge, you might want to stop that in case, you run out of power, because we're staying outside the unit at night, and he's just messing around. He's like, keeps doing it. So it comes time to go in to get the guy. His light's dead. So we're going in dark. It's just dark. I had to take my contacts off because they sprayed some gas in there. So I can't see, but I'm the first guy going in. I can't see, but I'm not going to say, hey, I can't go in because I can't see, because, you'd never hear the end of that. So I go in and I'm just trying to keep my balance. I got these guys behind me going in too. And I'm kind of slipping, and the guy pops out from the side of his bunk because we don't know where he's at. And so I see him and I clothesline him, and he goes back and he's got this, sock full of batteries. And I didn't know it, but he was hitting me. So I drive him back against the wall and get him down. We get him out, cuff him up, put him in a gurney, and he's just, rah, rah, he wasn't hurt. We weren't really hurt, but it was just a cluster, just a cluster. And it's like, really, I could, it's like me going like this. Okay, where's he at? And I can't see, and I'm not gonna tell the guys behind me I can't see, But yeah, we had a lot of things like that. But we didn't have we had extraction teams, but they were actually whoever was on shift. Like on a lot of those prison shows and stuff, where they have CERT come and do it. We didn't do that. We did our own, and a CERT was mainly for hostage, situations. Those guys. I gotta tip my hat to those guys. There's some pretty badass guys on there.
I was on CERT. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah.
We trained a lot with the SWAT team too.
Yeah, see,
gorilla.
Yeah, they used to call me the vanilla gorilla.
See, ours worked with the sheriff a lot because it was a remote area, and they even worked with the Eureka PD, and they sometimes some Brookings and stuff. And there's some badass dudes on there that I got to tip my hat to. But on the shows where they have when they say the CERT team comes in, it always chaps my hikes. It's like, man, we did that. We didn't need these guys to come in and take care of our business for us. We handle our business. Our CERT guys were for the big stuff. We're for not for unless I would say a pod got taken over or something, and we really never had to call for the CERT team for that either. But there's a few times they did a lot of the escapes. We only had like maybe 5 escapes, and those were like all level 1s. Because we had a level 1 at Pelican Bay, at level 4, and then the shoe. So the level 1s were the ones that escaped not all the time, but that were the escapees.
I've done everything from being the shield guy on the point to going in and fanning out with the hats and bats. I mean, it's our team did a lot of stuff, and we had a lot of training. It was a really good time. I miss the team, but I don't miss being on the team. If you know what I mean. Yeah,
exactly. We trained for extractions. We'd have IST classes for extractions, and sometimes the fun things were when you had staff pretend to be an inmate, and you gotta.
I keep thinking from that line from The Princess Bride, I am the Brute Squad.
I'm on the Brute Squad.
Well, when you were a young guy starting out in corrections, you wanted to be on the extraction team.
Oh, yeah.
And they had the list. You come in, sign in, and the sergeant's office, they have a list of who's on the shield, cuffs, legs, extra, whatever. And you always wanted to be on the extraction team because it's just a rite of passage. Just not that you wanted to brutalize anybody, and I never knew anybody that really wanted to kill anybody.
Yeah.
But it was just
to me, it was about the extra training, because every bit of training you got was good.
Yeah.
I was digging through my pouch of patches.
See, ours was with an S. Ours was Special Emergency Response Team.
Ours was Corrections Emergency Response Team.
Funny.
But I used to have some buddies that were CERT team guys and at the range and stuff. And I remember one time I was out there with a CERT buddy of mine, and we're shooting off just extra gas rounds that we had. It was the end of the year, last day of range, and he loaded up the gas gun, and he said, "Here, I shoot." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I shot it, and it probably got this far out of the barrel, and it exploded right in our faces. That was a nice day. I was like, oh, it was the end of the day. It was hot. It was like, It was like June or July, because it doesn't really heat up in Crescent City till like the end of June, beginning of July. You don't get a lot of summer there. But I went home, I was miserable. This is freaking miserable, you know.
No, I've been there. I've still got my my OC and Taser videos too. I need to upload those sometime.
Oh, I've got so many OC stories, and most of them don't involve inmates.
We would like
I
spray
love your
OC
Taser video.
We'd like spray OC in each other's drinks.
Oh yeah, oh boy.
OC a toilet seat and then just wipe it off so it was just a thin film.
Or someone's in there and you spray it under the door while they're in there, and they're like, ah!
There's a restaurant here in town. It's a Asian restaurant that the straws they had were, I mean, just absolute perfect for sliding right over that nozzle. And we would go up while somebody was sitting in their car and just like and fog them in the car. That was just each other. Yeah. We're horrible to each other.
Well, you know what? It's training though. It's you get because the inmates get used to the OC. You know, so why not? That's what we would do. We get in the office, and the unit I worked with, the last unit I worked last like 12 years was a psych unit, and we had like 4 or 5 officers on the floor because we ran a lot of programs. You had like 2 floor officers, an S&E, a yard officer, and then you'd have up down gunner. So and then control booth officer, of course. Sometimes we had 2 because we ran half of it was 2/3 of it was psych unit, and then the one section was THU, transitional housing unit, which was gang members that had rolled over on the gang. So it was like a PC unit basically.
Yeah,
and you had some heavy hitters because they would take some of the bigger guys in there, you know. But anyway, we would sit in that office, spray OC in the corner, close the door. The first one out had to buy drinks for everybody. And it was training though.
We used the stuff by Fox Labs. It was 5.3 million Scoville heat units. That stuff was horrible.
See, we used Sabre. Ours was all
that Sabre Red, man. That was food grade. You could put that in chili. But Fox, oh my God, that Fox was brutal. We're behind a few likes, guys. Ronan Barron, Buddy Hafner, my brother, Aurelio Rico Lopez III, and Luis Noriega and Robert Miller. Thank you, gentlemen.
Cheers to y'all.
Slanjama.
I remember one time I had a Mark 9. You know what Mark 9? They're about the size of this.
Yeah,
right here.
The party can.
Yeah, and I was sitting there at the desk doing paperwork, just bored, and I pick up the can and I shake it. Well, it's about like this. I'm just messing around. Well, from the nozzle comes a drop, and it's probably the size of my finger there, right into my eye, right there. Perfect, just perfect. And I closed my eye. I was like, holy crap, I could not open my eye. And we have a nurse's station right across from us in the rotunda there because it's a psych unit. I go there. I go, you got any eye wash? And they're like, yeah. What'd you do? I go, I got myself an eye. And of course the nurses are like, well, they're pretty cool, but they drained my eye.
That's what nurses do.
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They drained my eye, still, it was horrible. So I went out because we have a concrete yard there, and they have a shower on the concrete yard. So I was out there in the shower, rinsing my eye out, and this is half hour before shift change, so I'm a mess. So I still can't see out that eye. So I put my sunglasses on and drove home with one eye. And my wife was like, "What'd you do?" And I said, "Well, I told her the story." And she's like, "You're just a dumbass." And I was like, "Yeah." But then, we'll sit in there. We'll have our chairs, with the arms on it, and you'll have your Mark 9, in the holder. And a lot of guys, I crack up because a lot of younger guys would sling it low like a gunfighter. I carry it up high on my belt, but we always joke about them guys. But I hope you didn't carry like that, DA. I don't know.
No.
But anyway,
I rarely carried the party can. It had to be something nasty. Yeah. I kept the can of the Fox on my belt.
See, we carried the potty can, or the potty can. We probably carried that too. We carried the potty can.
Works.
Yeah. Expandable baton, because we went from the side handles to the expandable, not the ass.
Inside the walls, they wouldn't let us have batons at all.
Oh, see, and we carried that, and we had on our belt usually a radio in our unit, We all carried radios, cuffs, glove holders, with gloves in it. And so, carried a lot of stuff on our belts. But anyway, I had Mark 9, and I'd done this like 3 times in the unit. But like to say I had 3 guys sitting behind me. We're all doing paperwork. Sergeant was sitting behind me. And I get up and I'm turning, and it probably because that fat ass, it depresses the trigger, and it starts spraying the wall behind us. The sergeant was like right there. He jumps up. I've never seen this guy move so fast, not even to an alarm. Out the door. Everybody else, is moving. They're out. And I just got the whole wall and everything. And my buddy's lunchbox. I had to buy him a new lunchbox. It was
that's funny.
But that was not, well, it wasn't the first time I've done that. It's just, we had a lot of accidental discharges, It's like 16 years old, a lot of fast discharges.
I swung a cell open one time. 2 guys were fighting, and I'd radioed for backup, but the guy that was on the ground was losing badly. And I figured if I waited for backup to swing the door open, that dude may not be long for the world. So I swung the door open, and I'm starting yelling commands, and I'm still waiting to hear the outer doors coming. And I know I'm the only one in there, and I've got my spray out. And dude on the ground is trying to throw punches back, and I'm yelling for him to knock it off and separate, and they don't. So I did kind of like an arcing motion to get both of them in the eyes, but I kind of overshot it, and I went. The guy that was on top still striking. I kind of went down his back, and his pants were down about that far, and it went right down his butt crack. And it was not intentional. It was not intentional, but it did have the striking resemblance of a dog trying to get rid of worms.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know a few times when I thought I'd wash my hands really good after an incident, had to use the restroom and found out that I didn't.
I've seen that. I actually had that happen to me too. So I've seen that happen to several guys. That's what we refer to as a self-correcting problem.
Yes. Yeah. True story. We had the sergeant. She had a pepper gas grenade. She pulled the pin on it and threw the pin into the cell. Realized what she did, got it about a foot away from her, and it exploded. She looked like a powdered donut.
Oh.
And she's probably a captain or AW somewhere,
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, it was funny, especially knowing that sergeant, but yeah. Poof. And that stuff can be nasty. Because that stuff, if you don't clean it up, it just puffs up and puffs up.
My brother was a training officer for a while, and he works patrol in the PD that he works in, and he had this rookie officer with him, and my brother, he's a neat guy. He reminds me a little bit of Wiley in the books that DA writes, in that he's always over prepared. I mean, when my brother's on shift, he's probably the 5th largest standing army in the world, and he has everything. Well, he has flashbangs in his car. And so this rookie officer was, dicking around with one of the flashbangs in the passenger seat, and somehow or another the pin came out of it. And so, of course, this is a rookie officer who's never messed around with a flashbang. And so the pin comes out, the guy's like, oh! And they're driving down the road. They're driving down the highway like 60 miles an hour, and it goes off in the floor well of my brother's car.
Oh, man.
And, I don't know if he was more pissed that, he was just deafened and blinded at 60 miles an hour, or the fact that it burnt the floor of his car. But it took everything he had not to beat the crap out of this kid. And he's sitting there trying to tell me the story, and he sounded like a tank gunner from World War II. He's like, yeah, I was riding around with this guy. I'm like, you can't hear yet, can you? What? I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine that we went to academy together. He was up in a tower, and he had a few years in, he knew better. we used to carry 38s up in the towers with the mini, and he was doing a quick draw. Well, bam, blew out the window of his tower. Some of those tower cops crapped their pants. I know he crapped his pants.
Was that a career ender?
No, actually, it wasn't. Actually,
that's kind of surprising.
No, he actually was able to retire. He got down the road, but no, it wasn't. I think because he copped to it. That's the thing. If you do something wrong, and if it's not something just where you're really breaking a law, or if you tell the truth, a lot of times you'll get your hands spanked, you'll lose money, you'll lose time, you'll lose your shift. You might, but they, if you're honest about it, they'll, you won't lose your job most times.
Yeah.
Because there's some things you just can't, keep that person there. But something dumb like that, hey, I was playing around, I shot it. Okay, dude, we're taking 10% for a year, or 10% for 20 years, or whatever.
Until the window's paid for.
Yeah. Yeah. One time I remember, because we used to carry in our control booths, we used to carry 38s. I remember one time a buddy of mine, he got relieved, went across the yards went across B yard, and he said it got to the front gate, and the gate officer's like, "Hey, you still have your 38 on." He's like, oh. He goes, "No wonder those inmates were moving away from me on the yard." He says, "I thought it was weird, And they ended up having to put the yard up and then take the 38 back up there. And he didn't really get in trouble for that, but yeah, I've seen that happen a couple times.
I've done something similar. Firearms were not allowed inside the sliders at our facility. And I went to my locker and put all my gear up, but apparently I didn't put up my pistol. I still had my Glock on and the extra ammo. I put everything else up. I put my baton, all my badge, all that stuff went in my locker. I didn't put the gun up. I get all my crap. I go up to our Charlie pod and go in, and we did morning cleaning. We did all kinds of stuff. It was a couple hours later. I hadn't noticed. We opened the day room for morning rec, and about 30% of the inmates came out because morning, not everybody was up, but there was still quite a few guys in the day room. And I was just walking my rounds, kind of looking around. I noticed the day room was really quiet, and everybody kept looking at me like they were like everybody was just looking at me like waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why is everybody staring at me? And I used to have this habit. I would put my hands like this, one on my pepper spray and one on my mag pouch. And the mag pouch was empty, or supposed to be empty anyway. And I looked over at my buddy Brian, who was behind the desk, and I put my hands up like that, and I rested my hands, and I went, "Oh, those are magazines." And I was like, "Uh-oh." I'm walking over the desk. I'm like, I gotta go to the locker room. He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I still have my Glock on." He's like, "All right." So I just buzzed out, walked by master control, and pointed at it. They're like,
"Oh man,
get out of here with that."
Yeah, you know what? That drives me nuts in prison movies where they have guns on the tier, on basically on the yard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh man, you do a little research. You don't have to do a lot of research. Do a little bit.
It's like whenever you see in one of the cop shows, like CSI especially, you see them tase somebody and that knocks them out. My wife said whenever that happens, she looks at me and goes, "I hate you." I go, "Why?" She goes, "Because I know tasers don't knock people out now because of you." I'm like, it doesn't take much Googling to find out tasers don't knock people out. It's just neuromuscular interruption. It is not knockouts.
Yeah, they hurt like a bitch.
They do.
Yeah, we got our tasers taken away from us. So we didn't have anything. We had mace, which mace was, but for a few years, we didn't have any personal protection besides we had our batons. But then when we got the pepper gas, that was just a game changer. That was nice. It really was. It's non-lethal, and nobody really, we never had any fatalities from it or anything at Pelican Bay.
I've got a buddy. I won't say what department he's with because he's still a cop. But when we worked together, he one of his favorite pranks to pull was the old X26 tasers. He'd take the cartridge off of it and he'd take a zip tie and put it around the trigger and have it act, the zip tie turning, holding the trigger down, and still have the power switch powering it off. And he'd walk up to you if you're sitting at the desk or in a car, and he'd kick it on and drop it in your lap and walk off. You're like, ah! Got an active live taser that won't shut off in your lap. He'd just walk off cackling.
Yeah, we lost our tasers, and just people. people,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was excited when we were talking about getting the pepper ball guns, but
never got to use
that
those.
never happened. They had a thing with CYA, Youth Authority in California, and where they deemed it was a mistreatment, so the state didn't pick up the pepper ball guns. But that would have been nice.
They made pepper ball guns that look like Glocks.
Yeah, well, these would have been the rifles because they would have been up in the booth. But then I was talking to the fellas saying, hey, if we had those, you could see, because our control booths are separated by dining hall at Pelican Bay. So you have control booth here, control booth there, and the dining hall. I said, could you see control booth officers shooting at each other with those? They'd bring their own pepper balls from home.
Yeah,
and the walls of the dining hall would be different color, or they wouldn't. They'd just shoot the pepper ball. I mean, that's
bring paintballs. I got a trustee out here to clean up some paint.
Yeah, that's how some people are. They're just.
I could see that happening.
It's crazy, but someone's always got to push the limit.
Oh,
it all falls back to that gallows humor. I was a reserve cop for a very short period of time, but it was a pretty loose department, so I didn't have to go through all the, getting tased and getting pepper sprayed and all this crap. And so I was home visiting my family, and it was like over a Thanksgiving holiday or something. My brother was on patrol, and so he came in uniform because it was kind of slow, and he's just, listening to the radio and just kind of shooting the stuff with us. And it was right after one of these videos of somebody getting tased came out, and the guy's like fighting. He's hopped up on something, and I was like, I can't imagine somebody getting hit with that kind of voltage and still putting up a fight.
I've seen it.
It
seemed to be immobilizing. And so as I'm sitting there talking and running my mouth about the absurdity of the whole thing, my brother takes the cartridge off his taser and he dry stuns me in the thigh.
Oh,
I only got a little bit, like a half-second ride, but in that half-second, time stood still. And, I was telling somebody, I've attended an Assembly of God church most of my adult life. I never spoke in tongues until that moment. And I remember, like, it hyperextended my leg, and I literally vaulted myself out of the chair that I was in. Like, I went over backwards out of the chair and hit the ground like a ton of bricks. And, I'm a 230-pound man. I don't backflip anywhere. But oh my God. And for like a week afterwards, I had to look like a vampire bite that got me like through the jeans. I have never felt that kind of pain in my life. And I was like, there is absolutely no way. And, and I had a couple of glasses of wine in me when he did it. It wasn't like I was even entirely sober. Oh, damn.
My buddy Matt told me a story one time. They were phasing out some of the older shotguns, replacing them with the newest of the 870 Police Magnums, and they're phasing out some of the old last generation ones. And one of the detectives had the same shotgun in his car for like a decade, and they gave it to Matt and said, "Hey, go over this once over before we turn it in." And so he takes it in to take it apart. And apparently this detective not only hadn't been qualifying with the shotgun, but hadn't been doing anything other than stuffing candy wrappers down the barrel. When he went to clean it, it probably had 10 years worth of candy wrappers that had been stuffed down the barrel. It was packed solid with candy wrappers. He had to take the barrel off and plunge those candy wrappers out of it with a rod. And then he said there was like dried and stuck candy all over the inside of the barrel. He's like, I don't even know how this could have shot.
I'd have blown up.
God help that guy if he'd ever needed that to save his ass.
We'd find sunflower seed shells in the minis. Somebody had actually taken and replaced one of the rounds with a little pencil, because obviously they probably lost that round. There's odd stuff, But talking about tasers, we had this one inmate. He was like 6'6", just a big guy. We got from Texas, and just a fighter. He liked to fight, and we tased him, and he just stood there and went, pop, pop, come get me. And it took like 6 of us to get him down. But that was eye-opening for me, because I always thought, tasers, But when he
the
did
great
that,
equalizer.
it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I'll take his thigh, you take his knee, you take his calf. I mean, that's how big this dude was, But they extradited him to back to Texas, and he got the death penalty. Saw it in this book of death sentences, where you might have seen this book where they have everyone that's been killed in Texas, and he was in there because we were curious. One day somebody had that book and like, let's look this dude up, and yeah. Wow.
How much doses of medication to do it?
Probably. They wasted no time. He was probably within a year of being extradited from California. He's gone.
Texas don't play around.
No, I think he killed his girlfriend or something like that. It's horrible.
I sprayed a guy one time during a cell extraction, and he looked at me, wiped his face off, threw it on the ground, just like wiped the oil off and just threw it down on the ground and looked at me and goes, "You got to do better than that." I'm like, this is gonna hurt.
That's an eye opener when you spray somebody and I've seen
that. Shrug it off.
Yeah,
it's rare, but there's some people that the OC just doesn't.
Oh yeah, and then you're like, okay, I gotta time to get dirty.
No, thank you. You were talking about stupid crap that people have done with the guns and the tasers and whatnot. Remember that story that Dan told you, DA, about the dude that put his Glock on the hook on the bathroom stall?
Oh, yeah.
The guy went in, he was on duty, rural Washington County, had to relieve himself. And so he, cuts in one of these little hole-in-the-wall gas stations and, gets rid of all the gear. Well, for whatever reason, he didn't want his Glock in the holster when he dropped trow. I guess it was going to hit the ground or whatever. So he takes his Glock 17 out and he hangs it on the coat rack, on the back of the stall door. Well, somehow or another, it discharges. And then it ratchets back and forth until it empties the entire magazine, just spinning around on that.
Oh, wow.
So 17, 18 rounds.
Like one of those firework
reels.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Good luck explaining that in the report.
Yeah, and thank God he didn't get shot and no one else got shot. Oh my gosh.
Thankfully, it just stayed on the hook and spun. And I guess there wasn't anybody in the stall next door or whatever, but yeah. So he was carrying it as he should have been, one in the pipe. And,
we had a guy that he hung his belt up in a bathroom at the hospital. And for some reason he walked off without putting his belt back on, and he's like, "Oh my gosh!" and went back. His belt was gone.
Oh
but
my
the
God.
Nurse had grabbed it.
Oh, he's got lucky then.
Yeah, of course. She gave it to the sergeant. So,
well, yeah, he had that ass chewing coming.
Yeah. I think that ended his hospital overtimes.
Yeah. Well, I just carry a concealed carry, holster. And I had one time I went into a bathroom and just, dropped trow, and it fell out of the holster and it skidded into the stall next door. And there was a guy in the stall and he chuckled and he kicked it back over to me. I was like, only in Missouri. But I got the habit of where I would take it out and put it on the flush tank so that wouldn't happen again. And I left a convenience store and I got about 2 miles down the road. I reached in my holster, I'm like, oh shit. And I turn around. Thank God it was a small little town. It was still there. Nobody had gone into the bathroom, or if they did, they didn't mess with it. I was like,
someone opened the door, saw the gun, and went, "Oh,
yeah."
It's like, how stupid could you be, And of course, I immediately get on the phone and tell my brother, because he was a cop in that county. He goes, "Yeah, that would have been fun when they ran that, and I would have never heard the end about my dopey brother and his gun." I'm like, yeah.
That's right. You need a lanyard.
yeah.
Yeah.
To drag that gun around.
There's some departments require your weapon to be on a lanyard. First time I saw that, I thought that's insane, but I get the why. I just wouldn't want it attached by a lanyard.
No. Mm-hmm.
So it's like literally attached to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a 6-foot lanyard, like a telescoping phone cord.
Nice. See, I've seen that on like the some of the like Vietnam issue 1911s. They had the little lanyard hook on the bottom of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's insane. I could sit and swap CO stories all night.
Oh, yeah.
Goodness.
Oh, my God.
But the original point was to talk about your books.
Well, let's talk about the books. Do we have time?
We've
got as much
plenty of
time as you want, brother.
Yeah, that's right, man.
So, do you have anything coming out soon?
I'm working on a sci-fi road warrior-ish horror story right now for Silent Studios.
Nice.
And hopefully, I'm sorry.
I said nice.
Oh yeah, it's hopefully I'll be done with it next month, and then off to the editor, and then they'll publish it. I did Zombie Island for them. Jason Wright, he'll give me a list of this is characters I want. This is basic outline of what I want the story to be, and then I just take it from there and add characters, or whatever. Yeah. Like in Zombie Island, I added that. A lot of that, I don't know if you read it or not, but a lot of the prison, the island prison on Cockatoo Island, with the major who's kind of a Afghani. He's haunted from fighting in the Afghan war and a lot of the other wars for the Empire and stuff. So he's got a little bit of, and I really like that character. I really like that part. I really like that part of the book, and I'm hoping maybe I can revisit something like that at least. It's nice looking up the old weapons they used and stuff.
Yeah,
in the 1800s here in Australia. And then I'm working on the last book in the Operation Zulu series, trying to get that out. And I've got on Vela, this Vela thing that's coming out on Amazon. I've got it's a book called Falling Darkness. It's a sci-fi horror story. Takes place in deep space after a civil war has rocked the known galaxy in the future. And I'm just kind of trying to get some other stuff out there that I've been toying around with. It's short. I've got a short story that I'm trying to get out somewhere, and I'm just open to new ideas. Gonna switch from zombies for a while after I finish Operation Zulu, and I get into some horror, get into some thrillers, action stuff. Been toying with a Harlequin romance. Not really. Though I'd probably be very wealthy if I did. Well, not really. I can't write romance. If you read my books, and I have romance in mine. I have friends, but not romance.
I love it. Yeah. I always tease my mother because my dad has not read. Both my parents are alive. I'm blessed to have them. But my dad has not read a fiction book since 7th grade. And and he's 71 years old. He talks about it all the time. And he's like, because he thinks that I waste my time reading shit because I read novels all the time. I read to get away from reality. I'm a registered nurse. It's not like being a cop. I get that, but I see some shit. I don't want to think about it. Yeah. I want to, give me some dystopia that's worse than life. And my mom, on the other hand, goes through about 4 or 5 books a week. And she reads almost exclusively, the romance stories. And usually the ones she reads are like a mystery that has a romance edge, but they're all romance novels. You look at the cover of them and it's like, bodice ripping and, whatever. And my wife, I refer to it as her housewife porn. And she gets so mad. And she's like, it's not porn. I'm like, really? And I said, let me see. I see this. I see, she goes, that's just the cover. What's on the cover of your books? The same stuff that's in the book, Mom. The same stuff that's in the book.
Yeah, there's not a lot of throbbing in my books, but in Harlequins, I think there's a lot of throbbing in those books. A lot of use of throbbing.
We're not gonna, flip yours open to, a random passage. And the zombie with his throbbing member.
No, but you may find some Dirty Sanchez in his predilections for goats.
Oh dear Lord. Escalated quickly. I forgot I'm dealing with a professional here.
I've got some off the wall characters in my books, but I don't. Yeah, like when I was a teenager, my mom knew I wanted to be a writer, and she was always like, she'd have these boxes full of Harlequin romances, and she said, if you write those, you'll make a lot of money. And I was just like, I can't do that. Like my wife and my kids are always like, you should write a kid book. And I'm like, I can't get my head into that right now, because I use a lot of profanity in my books. There's a lot of violence and a lot of bloodshed, so I just can't see it. I know, like Brian Parker, he's written kid books. I think there's a few other guys and gals that have written kids books in the zombie, genre, but I'm just not there yet.
Well, if I was assured that if I wrote a young adult book and it was guaranteed to become the next Harry Potter, I could probably see myself doing it, but otherwise, no.
Yeah. But the YA books are kind of not doing like they used to do.
It's true.
I mean, that was the thing, right? A YA, and you got a movie series,
Well, and some of the big writers are having their series get canceled by the publisher, because the YA stuff. Anybody that has watched the show knows I'm a big Jonathan Mayberry fan. He's like, the Stephen King for me. And he had his Rotten Ruin series, and then he spun off and did this like sci-fi series, and it looked like it was going to be really big. And of course, I read it because he wrote it, and the second book ended up on a cliffhanger, and it was like there was never a third book, and they were coming out like once a year, and I'm like, okay, about 3 years have passed now. The third book's never come out. And so, I guess somebody finally asked him about it on Facebook. He goes, yeah, the publisher decided to cancel the series. Wow. I'm like, wow, okay.
So that's why I prefer to be an indie. I don't cancel a series till I'm ready to cancel a series.
Well, yeah. I think the indie scene has really disrupted the traditional writing scene, because, I mean, before you go horror, okay, Stephen King, Kuntz, Robert McCammon, which Robert McCammon is really good. Kuntz used to be really good. I mean, I got burned down on him, but I used to love his books. Mm-hmm. And, a few other guys. And you'd be like, okay, that's it. Robert Lehman, you go see their books and but now it's like, you go indie and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got all this to choose from, especially like in the horror genre.
I think I prefer indie anymore because they're not limited by what the publisher says they want.
Yeah.
Their creativity is not stifled.
No, it's not. I mean, and for the most part, it's good. But sometimes, like I saw one the other day that I thought maybe somebody should have. But you know what? If somebody would have done that to me, that would have been horrible. So write, put it out there.
Yeah.
There's a reader for every right. You got to write. It's just one of those things. You got to write. Get it out there.
Write for your audience.
It might not be my cup of tea, but it's somebody's, just like mine. My books, mine. I don't have. Some people don't like what I write, and that's fine. Some people like it, and I really enjoy that.
I'm in the same boat. I've got my detractors as well. I mean, there are some people that, you go check some of my reviews. They're like, I don't like this type of book. And I'm like, well, then maybe I'm not for you.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to change how I write because, I get 2 bad reviews.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, I think I told you on that roundtable we had last month, or was it the beginning of this month? I forgot.
Beginning of this month.
Time's going. But I had a guy said there's a lot of blue language in this book, and I didn't really like the language in it. And I looked him up, and he had been reviewing cookbooks. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, the guy at least reached out, tried something different. Wasn't for him, so cool.
Yeah.
That's great. At least he read it. My words are in his head somewhere. Mm-hmm. Might be his last dying words. It's a cakewalk. I know. Because that's in his head. I put that in his head. But there's a lot of good writers out there. I like the community. I like the community of writers. And I like it that hopefully it's not a competition. I know there's some writers. I think it's a competition for them.
I agree. I've never seen myself like you. I mean, I'm a huge fan of your books, but I don't see your books as my competition.
No, and like you're man, I was looking at all your books. I'm like, holy crap. It's like I want to get into that apex predator because I love zombies, but right now, I kind of want to. My favorite is you got a small unit out in the woods or in the jungle, and there's a monster. or creature, cryptid, whatever.
Well, then you'd
that's
like my
my
code name.
favorite.
You'd like my code name Wild Hood.
Well, yeah, I was looking at that going, I got to read this, but I wanted to read the Ragnarok first. But I may finish that and then go to that because that's my favorite kind of stuff. You know, that's what I wrote. Dead Island. I wrote. I was thinking Predator, and you could kind of see some of that with just with the team that getting there. But I kind of like that stuff. I like when they're out there, they got the big guns, or whatever, and they can't see what they're fighting. They don't know. Dog Soldiers is another one that I thought was a really great flick.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, that took that and ran with it.
Well, there's working on a sequel to that.
I heard that, and I'm kind of excited, kind of not.
I hope it's as done as well as the first one. I hope they don't, screw the pooch, so to speak.
Oh yeah, and you got the actors in it. Sean Pertwee played the sergeant. Played Alfred in Gotham and a ton of movies.
Oh, he's awesome.
And the guy that played, I can't think of his name. He was in Game of Thrones, but he played the bad guy, the CIA type of op guy that turned into the bad werewolf.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
He's in a ton of crap, and then the main guy, he's in a ton of stuff. And
cool.
Good flick, man. I was really surprised.
Dog Soldiers is a great movie.
Yeah, and the special effects I like the werewolls.
I did too.
I thought that was neat. Yeah, like I said earlier, a bad suit ruins your movie. You could have a good vampire, good werewolf movie, but if the suit, same with a Bigfoot movie. You can't show a Bigfoot unless you got the suit that's just killer.
Yeah, you don't want something that looks like you bought it on Amazon for $80.
Yeah, and it's and I really haven't seen a good Bigfoot movie, honestly. I really haven't. Legend of Boggy Creek, but that's when I was a kid, and it, a lot of it was inferred, and
it doesn't age well.
Yeah, that's true, but that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. That really turned me out of cryptids, that movie, though. But I don't know if you guys have, but I've never really seen a really good Bigfoot movie. I read good Bigfoot stories.
I've seen a couple where the costume was really good. I'm trying to think of any of the names I'm off the top of my head, because I've watched all kinds of Bigfoot movies because I love cryptid stuff.
It wasn't the one with Greg Bunaducci and Danny Bunaducci and Greg Brady.
No, you guaranteed just that by mentioning those two names,
Mount Rushmore fighting jets and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah,
If you end up, with you liking the military unit stuff, DA's Codename Wild Hunt, the Lakeview Man, and Apex Predator series are all interconnected.
Okay,
it's a shared universe thing, and you get some neat, small group of guys up against something, best the military can send after it, and the something's a lot worse than they thought, and it's a lot of butt puckering action. I
definitely like DA's writing,
reading stuff,
and that right there is right up my alley, that kind of stuff there. So definitely I will be checking that out.
Awesome.
But I want to say, have you ever heard that song, "The Lakeview Man" by the Rainmakers?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to hear something really funny about that?
Yes, I do.
There's a little town not far from here called Branson West that 25 years ago was called Lakeview. And that's kind of where I originally drew my inspiration. But also at the same time, I drew a great deal from the Rainmakers, because I used to go watch the Rainmakers back when it was just called Steve, Bob, and Rich, when they played the Regency here in Springfield. About a week ago, and I can bring it up and read you the texts if you'd like. I got a message from Bob Walkenhurst, the lead singer of the Rainmakers. He said, "Hey, a friend of mine just told me about your book called The Lakeview Man. I was wondering if it might have been inspired in some way by our song, The Lakeview Man." And he messaged me. We messaged back and forth 2 or 3 times. I told him about Lakeview, Missouri, and also that I was a fan of their music. And he said, "Well, that's really fantastic. Why don't you come see us? We're going to be in Springfield in August." So I've got an invite from the Rainmakers to come, and I want to get a couple copies of the Lakeview Man to take it up and give it to him.
Nice,
that's awesome.
So he just reached out to me out of the blue just a few days ago.
Well, that's funny because they're one of those bands. Well, at least on the the West Coast here,
Mm.
they're not. They had, I think they had a couple of songs, you know,
Mhm.
and then they kind of, you know,
They're still putting music out, but it's
oh yeah, no, but they, you know, they weren't like, you know, like the Michael Stanley band. They were big in Cleveland, and
Yeah.
you know, and I'm a big fan of bands like that. And so I had a couple of their albums, and I remember back in the '80s, man, Snake Dance, Small Circles, and the Lakeview Man. Well, the other day I was listening to my iPod in the car, and the Lakeview Man came on because I got a bunch of their songs downloaded, and I thought, man, I wonder if DA's heard this song. Well, silly me. I guess you have.
Yeah, I've known about the Rainmakers since before they were the Rainmakers. Back in the 80s, I used to go watch them here in Springfield, a little bar called the Regency. It's not even there anymore, but it was a little local venue when they were just called Steve, Bob, and Rich. And
I'm a fan of theirs from the '80s when they came out with that their first big commercial
see if
album.
you can read this. It's maybe just too bright, but that's the text. The text I got from Bob Walkenhurst.
That's funny. Wow, that's neat. That's really neat. That's cool because to me, they're kind of a band that I'll mention people around here, you know, and they'll be like, yeah,
who?
Yeah, but I like their music.
I do too. They've got that kind of folksy rock sound that I really like.
Yeah, you know, so that's very cool, man. That's very cool.
I was pretty astounded. It's funny that you would bring up the Rainmakers.
Well, it's fun. You know, it's here I am with this, you know, hey, have you heard this song, man? And you're like, dude.
I used to sing that song, The Lakeview Man, to my boys when they were young.
That's funny.
That's a small world, man. Just a small world. Because I love the Rainmakers.
I do too.
But, you know, I mentioned around here, like I said, and they're like, Rainmakers. Like the Michael Stanley band. I love the Michael Stanley band in the 80s. I was just a big fan. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but people around here, unless you're in your area or Cleveland or somewhere like that, they're like, you know, who?
Yeah, I've seen the Rainmakers live a bunch of times. They were never a big arena band, but they were, you know, they would fill a small arena.
Yeah,
I've gone to see them. They did the Ozark Empire Fair here in our county a couple of times, and I saw them there at that one. And I've traveled to Kansas City and St. Louis both to catch them. And they always put on a really good show. I mean, I like them.
Well, that's good. That's pretty cool.
I love that song Downstream.
I don't know if I've heard
It's off their first album.
Gosh.
It's loaded with a lot of Missouri history. He's talking about floating down the Mississippi River and running into Chuck Berry and just a lot of really cool. It's a cool song.
Gosh. That's not the one with Snake Dance. Is that the album with Snake Dance on it?
No, Snake Dance, I think, was their third album.
Okay. That's when because I heard that song Snake Dance on the radio, and I was like, oh, man, this is cool.
I love the song Snake Dance. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And
I want to say Lakeview Man was off their, I want to say second or third album. But their first album is just called The Rainmakers, and it's got some really good music on it. They've got one song that was kind of an anthem of mine throughout, you know, my late teens and early 20s called Long Gone Long. And it's about a guy growing up and leaving a small town behind and the things he's leaving versus the things he's running into. And it was kind of an anthem of mine for years.
I got to get their first album.
It's if you've got iTunes or anything like that, they're all on there.
Yeah, I've got Amazon, and
I was listening to them just the other night. I listen to all kinds of music when I write.
Me too.
I've always got to have something, and I always want to have something that sets the mood. If I'm writing, you know, just basic plot, like I'm, you know, doing dialogue or doing an establishing story, I might listen to something like the Rainmakers. But when I do heavy combat scenes, it's got to be heavy metal. It's Disturbed or Sabaton or something like that.
See, I know a lot of writers do it to soundtracks and stuff like that, which is cool. But I like to do it with words, music with words. I like to actually listen to when I'm writing. One soundtrack I do like to write to is Wang Chung's "To Live and Die in L.A." To me, that was just a really good one to write to. But like, I used to throw the Jaw soundtrack on, or the Star Wars soundtrack on, or Matrix, or one of those. Terminator's a good one.
Terminator's a great soundtrack.
A great soundtrack.
I decided several years ago that Wiley's theme song is "Indestructible" by Disturbed.
It's funny. You talk about listening to music while you're writing. I mentioned before, I'm not a writer. I'm just a super fan of the genre. And when I read certain books, I hear soundtracks. I remember the first time I was reading one of the opening scenes with I was not an opening scene, but like when the Wild Hunt team goes up against their first big bad, I had Atreus song "Warrior" in my head. For whatever reason, I was hearing it, and one time I forgot what book we were talking about, DA, but I had heard Disturbed's "Down with the Sickness" was playing over the top of it, and I forgot what the scene was now. I was like, that fits. That really fits.
No, it's amazing, what music can do. Liam Cunningham, thank you, Tony. I couldn't remember his name. It was the bad captain in Dog Soldiers.
I'm glad he posted it. I couldn't think of it either.
Yeah, I'm glad he did, because I've told you before, I'm a big movie geek, and I drive my family crazy when I say, "Hey, that guy was in that," or "She was in that."
I do the exact same thing,
and they're like, "Okay." And now my kids are like that, and my wife's getting better at it, because she never doesn't remember an actor from, she didn't really care, but now she's like, "Oh yeah, they were in that." And
my wife's the same, does the exact same thing. Only now she tries to beat me to who was it?
Oh, funny. Well,
you were talking about Bigfoot creatures looking good in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I saw recently a trailer for a movie that I haven't seen yet. It just came out last month. It was a direct-to-video, because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the movie. It's called Dawn of the Beast, and it's the description of the plot sounds a little plot A tab B kind of thing. Group of college students goes out for a weekend, but there it gets interesting. Getting the plot rolling is your basic, teenagers in distress,
right?
But they run into a Wendigo.
Okay.
And it starts killing them off. And apparently, according to the lore of this movie, whenever the Wendigo shows up, Bigfoot shows up to stop it. And this movie culminates in a battle of Wendigo versus Bigfoot.
So Bigfoot's a good guy.
Bigfoot's kind of the good guy, but not so much the good guy. He's more protecting the forest, balance.
I like the cover. I remember they had that Bigfoot versus the zombies or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Bigfoot, Abraham Lincoln, president killer or something like that.
Yeah, it was Vampire Slayer or something like that.
Oh, yes. I like that movie, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer.
I have
much better than the book.
I read the book. I hadn't watched the movie.
The movie was much better than the book, I thought. But in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, I actually enjoyed that. I did enjoy the book.
That.
Huh?
I have not watched that.
It's it's a popcorn movie. I read the book and I enjoyed the movie more than the book. But like with World War Z, I enjoyed the movie more than the book more than I did the movie.
Oh, yes.
But I enjoyed that they actually put a big budget movie out there with a big budget cast.
True.
So just like Army of the Dead, I enjoyed that they made that movie.
Yeah, there was some issues. I had a few issues with it, but by and large, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I watched it twice.
I have not watched it a second time, but it does have the unique distinction of being one of the very few zombie films I've actually talked the wife into watching, and she liked it.
See, I turned my wife. She never liked that kind of stuff, and I was able to turn her so we can watch some things that she wouldn't have watched 20 years ago.
My wife refuses to read like zombie books.
Oh, really?
Or what my buddy Scott Rowe refers to as zombie porn. It's what he refers to my Ragnarok books as zombie porn. Which just, you have to know Scott. He's just a goofy guy, ex Air Force, current cop. That kind of
that
sense.
explains a lot. Ex Air Force, that explains a lot.
But in the Ragnarok books, when I first started writing those, I didn't have any way to get any feed. I didn't know anybody in the community.
Right.
I didn't really have any feedback. And I asked my wife, I'm like, I got like 6 chapters here. Will you read this and tell me what you think? And she refused. She's like, no, I hate zombie stuff. Got no interest in it. I'm like, honey, I got nobody else. Will you at least read it and tell me if it's worth continuing? I mean, I don't want to waste time finishing the book if it's stupid. And so she took those first 6 chapters, and I walked out of the room and left her alone because, she'll just give me the stink eye to quit breathing because I'm breathing too loud. So I just walked out and left the room. When I came back, she handed it to me and she goes, finish the book. I want to read the rest of it.
Nice.
And I was like, what? She goes, I don't like zombie stuff, but this is good. You need to finish it. And then I just kept going.
That's nice. Good. My wife's read some other zombie books, and she's a real harsh critic on. She's like, you know what? I like yours better. This guy just spent 20 minutes describing, well, not 20 minutes, 10 pages describing walking through leaves or taking a shower and coming out of the shower all. And I was like, oh, cool. I thank you very much. Glad you like that stuff.
I've read a lot of different zombie books over the years. Guys like Z.A. Recht, Jailborn. I believe Z.A. passed away, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes. Didn't finish that series. Somebody else did. That's I actually like that series.
It was a pretty good series.
Yeah.
But I've also read a lot of obscure, books, like just find one on Amazon, suggest and pick it up and read it. But nothing will turn me off of even a zombie book or any book for that matter, faster than getting the little details wrong. For example, like if somebody says, uses the word clip instead of magazine, I'm done.
Oh yeah.
I at that point, you've lost your credibility.
That's yeah. You know what? I had when I was writing Salvation, I have Sherry Castellano. She was the editor on that one. She's a good editor, and her family's into guns. And I'd written this one part, and she said, do you want me to knock you in the head? What are you writing here? And I was like, what? She said, you said assault rifle. I said, oh. I think I was just being lazy on that. She says, yeah, you better have been. So I had to change it to, I forgot what it was, but that just always cracked me up because it's like, yeah, you're right. I just was like, but yeah, I had a mistake like that in, I think it was Ravenous, where at the beginning of Raleigh Hill is being attacked by the Bosnian mercenaries and stuff. And he's by himself, and he has the Beretta, and it only had I was going off what I use, and it only had 15 rounds in it. And somebody told me, hey, they carry more than that. The special forces guy, I forgot what was said, and I was like, oh, got me there, but I was just going off what I carry.
Yeah.
And how many rounds I had in my magazine at the time. What I like about Nevada, no capacity. You can whatever.
Same in Missouri. California, you can carry whatever.
Careful. Yeah. So my son, he loves guns, and he's like, couldn't believe it. He moved here with us. He's like, oh man, it's not like California. But yeah, so the little things like that, you gotta be, I've had a couple, and I'm like, okay, thank you. So I try to research as much as I can.
Same here. If it's something I don't know, I'll ask. I want to get the medical terminology right. So I'll if it's something that's clinical or something like that, I'd get a hold of Steve. If it's like combat medicine, I've got my buddy Kerry Davis that runs Dark Angel Medical. I'll get a hold of him. I've got several friends who are ex special forces. I'm like, hey, this is what I would need to do. And like, oh, then you need this, this, and this.
Yeah. No, exactly. I go to people who know, or I don't write the scene in depth,
Right.
Like, okay, I'm not gonna write the scene real in depth, so that way I don't get dinged on it, and people enjoy it that are reading it, and they understand what's going on in it, But yeah, I get, I haven't got too much negative feedback that way, so it's good because I try and research it, and I try to use weapons that I've used. You know,
it's so off-putting when you read the error if you know what you're talking about. I was reading a pretty big name author's book one time, and the character was carrying a 45 caliber Glock. Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with Glocks. They make 45, so okay, that's cool. And in one particular scene, he draws down on somebody and then elects not to shoot him, and he puts the safety on and reholsters it. And I'm like, it's a Glock, huh?
Yeah. That must be that new Glock with the safety.
Yeah. And I was sitting there, and I was really off put by the whole thing. And so then, of course, I immediately go out to Glock's website because Dr. Google's going to teach me everything. And it's like, they don't make anything with an external safety. What the hell?
That's
this
right.
Went through edits. This was like published by a big name publishing company. I'm like, how the hell did this go through?
Well, that's a big mistake with people writing Glocks. Actually, I've seen that more than once. It's really weird. Google it.
I got an advantage over most people. I'm a certified Glock armorer.
There you go.
I remember talking to you about this scene and like, here's my safety right here.
Yeah, my safety's right here.
You got some wild boar for us to eat too.
Yeah.
I love that scene in
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah,
this is my
Eric
safety.
Bana just kills it. Yeah.
Steve,
Jason Isaacs is great in there.
Oh yeah. Jessica Letterman, Hazelwood. I love the book and like the movie Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
I didn't hate the book.
Thanks for Jesse.
I just like the movie a lot better. Maybe because it came to life more to me, just like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I like the movie a little bit better than the book.
Oh. Well, in the book, the writer doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't carry over to film. The film is written more of a serious standpoint.
Did you watch it? Did you see the Abraham Lincoln?
I saw the Abraham Lincoln when it's been a while.
I like the ending on it. I thought the ending was really good. I mean,
yeah, it was a neat twist. It caught me by surprise, definitely.
And then when he's going to the theater, getting ready to leave, and you're like, and I know this is a horror movie that's kind of tongue in cheek in a way, a lot of it. But when he's going to the theater, you're like, oh man, that kind of actually just teared me up because I know you're not coming back, and I know it's going to happen to you for real. Vampires be damned. But yeah, the way they did it, I thought they did a good job on it. I think it should have been a blockbuster, but then again, I think my book should be made into a blockbuster.
I'm right there with you. I'd like to see yours and mine up on the big screen.
There you go, brother. Let's start a production studio.
Heck yeah.
But I'm like, someone offer me, some studio come offer me something for Dead Island, I'd be like, yeah.
Someone asked me one time, they're like, if somebody bought the rights to your books and they made a book they made a movie that was nothing like your book, would you be upset? I'm like, if the check had enough zeros on it and that check clears, they could turn it into a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical with a musical buddy film for all I care.
Oh, me too. Hey, enough zeros in that check. Hey,
that's right.
You know what? There's always the book. The book's always there.
If you didn't like the movie, maybe you might want to check out the book.
Read the book. Yeah, it could be like, people that complain about World War Z. Well, the book's there. You got the book, But yeah, no, you could make it skating on ice zombies and
full on zombies of Penzance, I don't care.
Yeah, just
you know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna take $100 bill and go.
Yeah,
and make actual zombie porn, and you'd be okay with it.
Well, I don't know.
I'll be like,
yeah, but
that's none of that's in the books, folks.
But you see some of these writers, they get upset about their works that are turned into crappy movies, or the movies are nothing like their book, and I just think,
what? Be happy it was made.
Yeah.
But
we're different. This is a different era than a lot of that. A lot of the older movies that the writers, you hear the stories where you're just, shut out of the movie.
To read about that too, because for being a big fan of the horror genre, I was very, very late to discover Stephen King. when my wife and I met, she was a huge Stephen King and Dean Koontz fan. And, but she's like DA's talked one day. It's like, oh, but you got to read the stuff before the accident, you got hit by the van or whatever it was. So I decided, okay, well, if I'm going to read this genre, I have to read Stephen King. It's like you can't read fantasy without reading Tolkien.
Yeah.
And so I started buying his stuff, and I started, reading it in the order he wrote it, because I wanted to follow his progression through the stories. And of course, there's like 60 something damn books. So I'm still very early in the process. But I was looking at like just about everything was turned into a blockbuster movie. And so I started reading about his reaction to the movies, and every one of them, he bitches about the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you still keep selling the books to be movies, and you're cashing a check.
A ton of money.
Yeah. And you are the wealthiest writer in the world and have more money than Jesus. Do you really have the moral high ground there?
I've always said that, well, not to you guys, but other people, that the best Stephen King writers, the best Stephen King books are the writers that make the movies for the most part, because I stopped reading him. I think the last book of his I read was Cell.
Okay.
The Stand, my favorite book of all time. Apocalyptic
Stand was
book.
amazing.
Yeah.
I like Eyes of the Dragon too. That was a really good one in my opinion.
It was Tears of the Dragon.
Yeah.
Is it Tears of the Dragon? Did I get it wrong? I could very well have.
You might be right. I don't know. I was just for some reason thought it was Tears of the Dragon.
Some of his best stuff.
Maybe it was Eyes.
Short stories.
It is Eyes of the Dragon.
Okay, you were right. Sorry.
Some of his best stuff was short stories, I think. Some of the short stories are just amazing. But I think the writers that turn his movies into or books into movies and TV shows, I think, they've done a better job on some of that.
Oh, you don't need a 12-page synopsis of the history of the table they sat at.
No. I was a big fan of King's, especially in my younger days, but I just haven't been a fan. I'm a fan of his movies and the TV shows. Castle Rock, I love that on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. That one he had on HBO. Is it The Stranger or about the shapeshifter? Oh my gosh!
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. I can't think of it.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
Yeah, now that's a good one. You should check that one out because it's a cryptid.
Yeah.
So kind of cryptid. So I thought that was really good. But anyway, I'm just not a big fan of King like I used to be.
Yeah. Well, there's things I like about it and things I don't. Like I said, I felt like I was obligated to read it. I was a big fan of high fantasy as a teenager and a kid, and it took me years to read The Hobbit because I couldn't get through it. I
get you.
We're 35 pages into describing a branch on a tree.
No, I get you.
And I'm like, there's no way. And I had the same reaction when I watched the films. I went to the first Lord of the Rings movie, having never read the story. And I was like, okay, well, we're here 3.5 hours. And they were in the mountains 15 minutes into the film. And at the end, they're still in the effing mountains.
Oh, I love the movies. I thought they did a good job. I
did too.
Well,
I couldn't
after I saw them all and got the story figured out, I rewatched them, with more knowledge, and it was wonderful. And then
I can't rewatch them again though.
Then I went back and read the books, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I appreciate the movie even more.
See, I couldn't get through the books. I know it's blasphemy, but I could not get through. My sister sent me a set of hardback, and I just could not get through it. But as a teenager, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I loved the Lord of the Rings, the Ralph Bakshi cartoons that came out, and
the Rankin and Bass ones.
Yeah, the Rankin and Bass one, I love that stuff. But I've never been able to get through Lord of the Rings. Maybe someday I will, but and I love the movies, what they did. I thought, from what I knew as a kid watching the animated movies and stuff, they did a really good job of capturing it.
Yes, they did. I always liked, as a kid, and even now I'm an adult, I still do it too. But I always like doing goofy voices, like copy the voices of characters. I'd mimic like Underdog and like all the goofy cartoon characters. One of the hardest voices for me to ever learn to mimic was the guy singing The Greatest Adventure in that animated Hobbit, because the way his voice trilled. I finally got it. I mean, I can do it, but it took me so long. It's one of my prouder voices. I do a bunch of
They did what, 2 of those, I think.
they did one for the Hobbit and one for the Lord of the Rings.
And then what's his name? The guy that does the rotoscope animation, he did the first part of Lord of the Rings. The first leaves off where they're going on the adventure, and
exactly
Boromir's
death,
kill.
The death of Boromir. Yeah, those were kind of, if you looked at them, they were like animation laid over live actors.
Yeah,
in some scenes, especially the fight scenes.
I think they call it. I think they call it rotoscope. They had
rotoscope. I think that is right.
You ever see Wizards? Now that's a wild movie.
Yeah, it was ages ago.
There's one part of dialogue that I love is where the 2 brothers, one's good, one's bad, and the good one says, "I'm glad you changed your last name, you son of a bitch," and then he kills him. Spoiler alert! Sorry, folks.
Oops,
I kind of hit myself, but I mean, I always thought that bit of dialogue, and I've always wanted to do something in my books like that, because in my books, the bad guys they get their comeuppance. I mean, they may get the upper hand for a while, but I like to see the bad guys put down because you don't see that in real life.
Oh yeah.
I've killed off a few characters in my day that, mainly like good characters that I've gotten hate mail over, and I've killed off a couple of bad characters that people complained I didn't make them suffer enough.
Yeah. I had this Russian rapist in the first book. I mean, I don't show rape or anything like that, but he's a rapist by what he infers and all that.
Yeah.
And he dies a pretty horrible, and he's a druggie too. I mean, he's just this druggie,
just a POS.
Crud, and he dies pretty brutally on the tarmac there. And I thought that was a pretty fitting ending for that guy. I got a lot of pleasure out of killing him off, and I think a lot of people that read the book got a little joy out of that, because that character Nico, he was just a horrible guy, and it's fun to write horrible people.
Oh yeah. How far into Ragnarok are you?
I'm where they're at. They rescued the EMT and the other officer, and they're taking off right now.
Okay, so you're still pretty early in the series.
Yes.
Okay. There was a scene I was going to talk about, but I don't want to spoil.
Yeah, don't spoil it for me yet.
I don't want to spoil anything for you.
I've been really bad about reading, really slow, and I want to read your book, and I'm got to tell you, truthfully, I love your book, because I can relate to the people in it, and I really like it. That's why I'm excited about the Apex Predator. I'm excited about that because, I love zombies, but like I said before, man, a good monster story, I love.
I think you'll like the creature effects in the Apex Predators.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
I blend a lot of Native American lore into it, but you're also running into classic werewolves. And in one, you actually start dealing with I don't want to say it. I don't want you to get too far. I don't want to spoil it, but you start branching out and dealing more than just the wolves.
I will definitely let you know, DA, when I'm reading it. I will definitely let you know, and I will definitely leave a review. My wife, she's Native American. She's a Yurok from the Klamath, and it's funny because we'll watch Skinwalker Ranch. And she will not say that word, so we call it Skywalker. Because
I've got some friends.
You say that word, especially in that heritage. I can't find the right word, but it's not a good thing. So we call it Skywalker. We call them Skywalkers.
I've got some friends who are Navajo and they won't say it.
Yeah, no, we call them Skywalkers.
Call it down on you.
Yeah. He says you'll get its attention.
Yeah.
You say the name of the thing, you give it strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So it's funny. We'll watch the show about the Skywalker Ranch, and that's what we call it, Skywalker Ranch.
That's funny.
Which there's things I believe in. I do believe in ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Not like Casper, but I do believe in things like that. I know there's an afterlife. I know there's a something. I believe there's a Bigfoot out there. I don't believe there's a Loch Ness Monster. People might go, oh, but they proved that photo, the one they base everything on was fake. The guy came out and said it. And I just don't believe there's a Loch Ness monster. I'll probably get some hate on that, but I do believe there are lake monsters, or not like, I think they're like maybe 200-300-year-old eels or something like that. Something explainable.
Oh,
not
there are lake monster sightings up in Alaska, but look how big freaking sturgeon get.
Oh, I know. So I think
used to be misidentified sturgeon. I mean, we're talking a prehistoric fish that can get almost 20 feet long.
Well, did you ever watch that show with the guy? I forgot the name of it.
River Monsters.
All over. Yeah, River Monsters. I mean, some of those fish.
Some of the things he pulls out of the water. I'm like, I'm never going in the water anywhere near that place.
Yeah, and they bite him, and he's all, it's like, dude, and you're in the middle of nowhere. He's in the middle of nowhere. I'm sure he's had to take several big dumps of antibiotics in his life.
I bet.
But yeah, I think there's things out there. I want there to be things out there. I definitely want there to be I had a buddy I worked with at the prison, and he was a no-nonsense guy. He's a black guy, and I'm just saying this because this will play in the story. We're talking about Bigfoot, and he says, guys, I saw Bigfoot, and I believe in Bigfoot. And when this guy, the way he said it and everything, he was serious. He was coming home from work, stopped at this 101 area, and it was foggy. We get a lot of fog over there. And this hairy Bigfoot came up to his window, hit the frame of his car, and ran off across the road. Well, it was white and a female and hairy. And he never saw it again. And he really believed. I mean, we got chills listening to it,
There are a lot of accounts of people seeing white Sasquatch.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the Redwoods. The Redwoods is right there. I mean, where we lived, there's a Bigfoot that can live out there. Definitely live out there,
Oh, easily.
So I think there's something out there. We don't know everything, but I know there's not a Loch Ness monster. That's the one cryptid that I firmly believe is not there. Their tourist organization over there, don't write me bad letters, because I know they make a lot of money off of it. But that's the one thing I would probably swear on, that there's not a Loch Ness monster. But other cryptids, man, I firmly believe there's something out there.
Oh, sightings of Bigfoot alone date back to before European settlers came to this continent.
Oh yeah,
Native American lore dates back 2,000 years.
They more. Do up in the Klamath area. They have,
and tribes that had no contact whatsoever, like your West Coast and East Coast tribes, describe the same creature, but they never had any contact. They've got their own name for it, but
I agree. The Mothman, man, I think there's something there. I don't think it's that statue they have there.
No, there's a Native American myth similar to the Mothman, and that's what I think it is. And the natives described it as a portent of doom, that it showed up before bad things would happen. It foretold disaster, and I think that's what people are seeing. Yeah, harbinger of doom.
Harbinger of doom. Yeah. Hey guys, I'd love to spend more time talking with you guys, because you're great. I'm gonna have to split.
Not a problem, Alan. Thank you for staying as long as you have.
No, hey,
it was a great time, man.
Yeah, and Steve, it's great talking with you. I've seen you. Now I get to talk to you. So it's great.
And you're welcome back anytime, man.
Hey, I will take you up on that, because I love to talk.
Fun.
You are always welcome. Man. We do this every Saturday night. So
hey, just hit me up, man.
Hey, anytime. I'll let you know.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, thank you for being on. I hope you have a great night, man. You be safe.
You too. And thank you, everybody that's tuned into this.
Hey, before you go, tell us one more time where to find your books.
Okay.
And,
you can find me on Amazon.com. You can find me in the Written Undead on Facebook, and the Zombie Army on Facebook. Oh, nice. And Allen Gamboa on Facebook, Allen Zombie 50 at Facebook. I don't have a big old website or anything like that. I'm just floating around, so throw a rock and you'll find me.
And I'll have all the links to his pages on my author page as well, so you'll know where those are at.
Thanks,
Alan.
DA.
Thank you again for coming on.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Anytime you getting ready to make a release, share the release on my.
Well, that's why I'm going right now.
Yeah, share the release on my wrong kind of release. Well, it's like the last show, the zombie show you actually did from the bathroom, so it would have been fine.
I did that one from the bathroom. That's right. That was my office.
but anytime you're gonna release a book, drop it on my author page, and we'll get you back on the show to promote the new release.
Okay, great. No problem, man. I really appreciate it. You guys are fun to talk to, and you guys are all interesting. So.
Well, we appreciate you too, man. You're a lot of fun to talk to, and I love swapping CO stories because it's just not every day you run into somebody that understands.
Yeah. Oh no, that's true.
All right.
That is true. Except I got one upstairs that I can swap with. All right, you guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and everybody have a good night. Everybody out there.
Thanks, man. You be safe.
Cheers. I probably shouldn't have done that. Night.
Good night. About made me spit coffee out. See you, Alan.
I think I'm gonna have to unplug this thing. See you guys
later.
I love it. He's a fun guy.
Yeah, he's a great writer. Yeah, you've definitely got to check out his stuff.
Yeah.
I will share his
that first series of his, the one that you just showed the promo for, that he's in the process of wrapping up. It sounds pretty interesting.
I'm going to drop his link in the chat again, so hopefully everybody get a chance to check that out. Alan's one of my favorite of the zombie genre. Him, Sean Chesser, J.L. Bourne's another one I really like. Just some great writers. Z.A. Recht was another one. Z.A.RECHT. He passed away a number of years ago, but his books are still really good. If you like zombie books, there are a ton of zombie authors. And if you go to the Zombie Army on Facebook or Zombie Book of the Month Club, you'll see a lot of them. Of course, you've got my Ragnarok Rising series, which hopefully you guys will check out. But in a nutshell, I still consider zombies part of horror. I don't consider that they are kind of a separate subgenre, but we're all horror authors at the end of the day. And I will put Alan's writing up against anybody in the horror genre. Just a fantastic writer, great guy, as you guys could see, and a hell of a lot of fun to talk to. So I hope you guys will check him out. Go by his Facebook page, give him a like, and tell him I sent you.
So since I didn't get a chance to read any of his stuff, we're getting so many writers on. I'm having trouble keeping up with their work to be an educated consumer here. Are his zombies more like the traditional style, or are they a different kind?
Yes and no.
Okay.
He's got some traditional kind of zombies, but then he also plays with the standard. He deviates a little bit, so gotcha. I don't want to give away too much of the surprise, because it's there. Let's just say he's got a unique approach, and put it that way. He does action very well. I mean, he was a career CO. The man can choreograph a good fight scene. His pacing's good. His books don't take a whole lot of time to jump into the action. That's my problem with a lot of books is, 3 chapters in, you're waiting for something to happen. His books generally jump right in and stay fairly constant. I think anybody that's a fan of my books would definitely like Alan's.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to reading them. This afternoon I just started Soldier On by Sean Chesser. And I'm like maybe a chapter into it. I had wrapped up the book I was reading, and so I'm hoping to tear through those pretty quick. His moves so fast.
Sean's a great writer.
By the time you're done with it, you're like, oh, that was 230 pages. I got done with that in no time. It's addictive for sure.
And
you look a little rough.
Just didn't sleep great last night.
Uh,
but it's not a big deal.
I had one of those moments too. Rachel and the kids and the dogs are all out of town. I'm literally at home by myself for the weekend, and place is a little too quiet. You know, it's Kaylee and Ton went to Atlanta to visit his family, and they took Cora with them because they wanted company for their dog. And then Rachel and Andrew took Kenai with them to see to visit her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. She sent me a bunch of pictures because her mom literally lives in the middle of nowhere. Like it's 30 minutes from a town. And, their land has no other close neighbors or anything. And she's like, yeah, there's a lot of really kind of dark and dense woods around here. She takes like all these pictures around it. And she's like, you ought to put them online and have Dream take a look at it. Might be able to find something in them.
He just might.
But she sent me 10 or 11 pictures. I'm like, that is a creepy ass woods in that picture. And of course, it's dense enough that you get 10 feet from the tree line, and it's black. There could be anything in there.
That's one of the things I used to like about going out to my Uncle Buddy's house. Is and those of you who are familiar, my Uncle Buddy passed away a year ago in December, but he was the inspiration for Jay Matoska in my books. He was the real white bear. He was that guy, and his place was so far out in the middle of nowhere. I could step off his porch and away from the house and like walk over where the cars were parked and just listen. And you heard nothing. You heard forest sounds, you heard crickets, maybe tree frogs, but you didn't hear traffic. You didn't hear, a car passing by. You didn't hear a neighbor on their radio. In fact, if you didn't look behind you and see the lights of his house, you would think you were the last person on earth. I mean, it was just absolutely isolated. His driveway was a mile long, and that was to a gravel road. And it was another 1.5 miles, 2 miles from his driveway to the nearest paved road. To say he was in the butt crack of nowhere was not really an understatement. I've hunted on that land so much and fished down there and camped down there, and I miss that place. It was a beautiful place, and I was sad when he was gone, and it was gone as well. But it's a place that'll always carry a special place in my heart, and now it exists essentially only in my books because it's changed so much since the new owners bought it. It's nothing like it. They moved a couple of houses in on the land, and I'm assuming family members, and it's now not isolated anymore, and they've got security lights, and it's just not the same place. It's just a completely different feel down there now. When Uncle Buddy was there, when it was his place, you could sit on his front deck and look out over the river valley and not see another sign of civilization at all. Maybe once in a while you'd see somebody passing down the river on a canoe.
Like Lewis and Clark.
Right. But there was nothing. And I loved that place so much. And I'd always hoped that I'd be in a position to when something happened to Uncle Buddy that I'd be able to buy it, but I didn't have the opportunity or the money. So it was sold to somebody outside the family, and now the only place it really exists now is in my memory.
So is his place the inspiration for Jay Matoska's place, or
yes, that is his house.
Because I got some whiffs of it in Clark's cabin too.
Mm-hmm. There's elements there too. But Jay Matoska's house is how I remember Uncle Buddy's house. I mean, down to where the fireplace is at. I mean, I describe it exactly how I see it in my mind's eye when I close my eyes at night, and it'll always be that way in my mind. nothing will change it. But as far as it existing in the real world, it's vastly different than it was when I was young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens, and we have these places that we remember, and I grew up in town, but I would spend the summers on my grandmother's farm, and my uncles would farm it, for my grandmother, and she was widowed, and it was 200 acres in southern Illinois, and it was I think there was only about 40 to 80 acres of it that was actually cultivated. The rest was just trees. And I would just go for a walk and be gone all day, go through the woods. And when my grandmother passed away, and then my uncle passed away, his son started farming it. But it was more as kind of a hobby farm.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't really using it to subsist on, and he's leased some of the land to other people to farm. And so it just isn't the same thing. The places where you could walk aren't quite anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's fences where there used to not be any, and it's not the same.
If I ever reach that level of success with my own writing where I can afford to just pick up and find a place like that of my own, I don't know. There's many places in Missouri left that are quite that rural anymore. Maybe close to Eminence, maybe on the back side of Table Rock Lake down toward Cassville. Those areas are still pretty wild. Maybe over on the Arkansas side, down by Bull Shoals, maybe. Once you get also in Arkansas, when you get down close to the Wichitas, it's pretty rugged. Or maybe if you left the Ozarks and went up into Wyoming or Montana. But that place, there's so many former California people that are moving into that area. The price of land is skyrocketing, and
right.
you couldn't touch a decent sized ranch out there for less than $1 million now.
Right.
And my thing is the older I get, the less I want to be around big towns. I'd like to build a place like Uncle Buddy's where my only neighbors are deer.
Oh, I would extend your statement even further and say the older I get, the less I want to be around people in general.
Fair enough. I would not disagree with that.
You've got just a couple of years on me, but I'm going to be 45 this year, and I am I'm not too far from get off my lawn.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I'll actually be 51 on Tuesday.
Oh.
So, yay.
Yeah. Yeah, 51. That's such a random year. It's at the it's like 45. It's not one of the big ones. It's nothing.
I'm although say in the last year there's been enough gray added to the beard that with that hat you gave me, I can pretty well pull off the Hemingway now.
Oh my God! When I went to eat at that restaurant that had like the Hemingway theme, I kept looking around, and there's a portrait of Hemingway sitting outside his bungalow or whatever it is that he was living in when he was writing, his little writing room. And it's like him sitting there and it like this bamboo table with an old typewriter, sitting at it. And he's got a bottle of something, that he's drinking. And I was like, yeah, that could be DA. It could happen.
Yeah. I could see me doing that. Maybe not with a typewriter, probably a laptop.
Right. But it fits.
Oh my God. I'm spoiled compared to writers that have gone before. I cannot imagine trying to write a novel on an old typewriter, because the way I type, it'd be like, damn it, click, 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 damn it, click, click, click.
Yeah, I was watching one of our doctors type a note one time, and I didn't realize that he couldn't type. And so he's typing his note about the patient, and I'm watching him go. And it just cracked me up. I was like, can you imagine somebody writing a book like that? And I'm like, that's why they came up with those dictation things that you just, talk into for your notes. Is, they didn't have dictation when I was in college, and I learned to type pretty damn fast.
When I first started writing the Ragnarok books, my typing skills were considerably less than they are now. I was typing maybe 35 words a minute. when I first started the Ragnarok books, and all told, we had all the right and then the page word count up of all the Ragnarok books. It's 750,000 words, and I've done that and more since the Ragnarok book. So you look at it, I've probably typed 2.5 million words. So my typewriting speeds come up somewhat. I mean, I'm probably typing 75 to 80 words a minute now.
Oh,
maybe more when I get on a roll.
Yeah, well, that's a good speed. The last time test I did typing, I hit 85 words a minute, and that's pretty quick. But of course, you're working for years in a job where I had to type a lot. You keep those skills sharp.
Yeah, it's not hard to practice when it's all you do. Well, I survived my second COVID shot.
How did the side effects go?
The side effects sucked ass. I got it on Tuesday evening, and I felt like crap up until like this afternoon.
Oh wow! Yeah, you got hit hard.
Yeah,
well, I got mine on a Saturday morning, and I felt like I had polio until Monday night, and it was bad. And of course, I was doing the man flu thing, and Rachel's not used to see me like that. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" I got polio. You don't have polio, stupid. I'm like, I feel like I got polio. Yeah, it was rough.
Up until yesterday, I felt like I had a goose egg under the skin where that shot was at. It's gone now. It's gone now, but it was, not only was it a goose egg, it was warmer than the rest of my skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone. It's finally gone now, but it hurt when you touch it.
Oh yeah, and, you roll onto it in your sleep. You're like,
yeah. Oh yeah, I'd get my arm up about here, and it'd be like, oh, and then of course, with my back and I've got arthritis in both knees. Thanks, Army. But I've got arthritis in both knees, and after that shot, everything hurt.
Yep. Every inflammatory process is cranked up to 11.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if I could, because I like Googled whether or not I could take like a leave or something like that after taking the shot, and like 50% of the websites said, "Oh yeah, it's completely safe," and the others like, "No, you can cause severe internal bleeding." And I'm like, what do I do? So after about day 2, I'm like, I'm dicing it, and I took some leave, and it helped. So I didn't bleed out the eyes and ears, so I guess I'm okay.
Yeah, see, I only took Tylenol after mine because I didn't want to do anything that might squash the immune response. I'm like, if I'm going to go through this shit, I'm going to get every last bit of this vaccine, doing its job.
Yeah.
And I will say that Tylenol helps with the pain and the fever. It doesn't do anything for the inflammation. It was still rough.
I'm glad I took the shot. I mean, say what you will for or against it, but with Annette and Noah both having compromised immune systems, anything I can do that will lessen the chance of one of them getting sick. I'm not pro or against. I keep my politics out of everything if humanly possible. And I don't really give a crap about the vaccine one way or the other, and I'm not going to make any claims to the efficacy of it or whether or not there's any government conspiracies behind it or anything like that. But if it's a 1% reduction in the chance that my wife or son would get sick, then I'm going to take it. I can't risk losing either of them. I mean, Annette and I have been together almost 30 years, and I would be absolutely lost without her. So
I use the same mental path, and fortunately or unfortunately, if thanks to your back issues, you kind of we're out of the public through a lot of the pandemic just by the nature of your life now. Well, I was spending the whole thing on the front lines in the urgent care, and I was like, when there was a PPE shortage and we're getting, one pair of, or one mask, a week, or one mask a day, or whatever, you got to do everything you can to protect your family.
Absolutely.
And I'm to the point where, I fight depression every day, like you and I've talked before. But 15 months into this, I am done with it. I'm over it. The pandemic can go screw itself. I want to get back to some semblance of normalcy. And Springfield just repealed its masking mandate. I went to get my hair cut today, and I saw my hairdresser's face for the first time in almost a year and a half. And it's the same gal who's cut my hair for 15 years. And I was like, I haven't seen your face in forever. And she goes, why? Does it look different? We joked around about it. And I was like, I still wore my mask just because, it's keeping them safe. But it was really cool to be able to see faces, see somebody smile. It's definitely a different world.
Well, it also means that now we can more safely go out and have dinner and get a few drinks and act like idiots again. I mean,
go try that Hemingway place.
Oh yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah,
we need to do that.
And the nice thing about that place is, if it got really desperate, it's within staggering distance of my apartment. So, it'd be a long stagger, but we can make it.
I have faith in us.
Yeah, I've seen what we can do. Yeah.
We've staggered farther.
Oh, I love it. Still staggering. We definitely need to get some grilling done again.
I am well over 20,000 words into Nightmare Hunter now.
Oh, sweet. Well, I read the little sample that you sent me, and I'm really enjoying it. I love the fictionalized version of Robert Miller, and I don't think I would appreciate it quite so much if I wasn't involved in this show, and get people calling my friend. It was something. It was pretty freaking awesome.
Well, it cracked me up when Robert told me that he showed it to his wife, and she's like, I could see you saying that.
Oh my God. His dialogue was like totally from the soundtrack of Robert Miller's life. And of course, now knowing Roger Noriega as well as I do, I'm hearing all of the character Roger Noriega's lines delivered in Roger's voice. And
I want Roger to do the actual audiobooks of the.
Oh my God. His inflection is so funny, and just his facial expressions when something hits like the pucker level with him, like we'll be telling a story about a cryptid encounter or something, his eyes do this thing, and it's like I can't even describe it. It's like a subtle change in just the way his eyes are, and you can see like just the complete fear behind what's going on there. And I'm picturing him talking into his digital recorder, going through that. And then when he read that part of the prologue in one of our broadcasts a couple of weeks ago, that was so funny. I was like, oh my God, I see this. I totally see this.
Yeah, I think he would be perfect to do the audiobook version of it.
Yeah.
And
I don't think anybody could do it like him.
I don't think anybody
honestly,
could.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else is suited for it.
He's got that dry delivery, and the fact that he can transition from just being very well-spoken broadcaster to vulgar Spanish at the flip of a switch, for the scene, the scene required of like, oh yeah, he could do the character. He's got it.
So it's either Roger or John Leguizamo. So one of the two.
Yeah, there you go. John Leguizamo would be awesome. I haven't heard from him in a long time.
I was saying,
is he still acting anymore?
I haven't seen him in anything since John Wick. So I don't know. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he isn't. He would be my choice to play Roger if we made movies of the books.
Oh, I could see that. That's funny. Yeah.
For a while I was doing fantasy casting of the books on the website. I need to get back to that. I need to go back and do more of that.
Oh, it's very funny just to see what's going through your head, because anytime I read a story, I always have this perception of what I think the character should look like, And then when you hear about who the author had in mind, you're like, huh, okay, didn't see that. Or yeah, spot on. That's who I was thinking, you know.
Well, somebody had told me on my author page that they had envisioned The Rock playing Daniel Clark. And while I think that would be an awesome version of Daniel Clark, and I would still watch the heck out of that movie, I never envisioned Daniel Clark as a big guy. Like most Rangers or Special Forces guys, they're built for endurance, not power. He's 5'7", 5'8", and built like a runner, at least in my head.
Yep, I picture him like my friend Rick when he was in the service. Like all of us as we've gotten a little older, he's put on some weight. But like I've seen pictures of him when he was with his Ranger group, and Rick was like 5'8", $140, and it just And in fact, actually, at some point in the book, one of the other characters refers to Daniel as that little shit.
Yeah.
So I don't picture him as a big guy, I picture him smaller than me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the guy that inspired him is a friend of mine, and he's not a big guy. He's 5'7", 5'8", but he's the guy that he'll fight all day and twice on Sundays. I mean, he won't quit ever. And I swear to God, the guy was born with a Glock in his hand. Probably the single best shot with a pistol I've ever seen. Hey, Josh.
Hey, D.A.
How's it going, man?
Another day in paradise.
Know that.
See, now I picture Gray Eagle as being a bigger guy.
Gray Eagle is a big guy.
I pictured him as kind of, it's going to sound like really stereotypical, but I pictured him built more like Jay Silverheels, just 6'2", solid, just solid, not like ridiculous, but just solid.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on the bigger end of what a Ranger would be. He's a good sized dude. Probably played linebacker if he played football. But then you've got Kodiak, who is a freaking mountain.
Yeah, 6'5", 6'8", shack size.
Yeah, and twice as broad. Built like a power lifter.
Yeah, see, I pictured him about 6'9", 300 pounds, all muscle.
Yeah, just absolutely jacked.
Basically,
like a Native American Terry Crews.
Yeah, there you go.
The guy that taps you on the shoulder and you turn around and look, and you're looking up in the damn rafters. It's like, oh shit!
You turn around and you're staring him right in the nipple.
Yeah.
Like, hi, how's it going? Please don't kill me.
He's built like the Armenian mafia guy that we saw at the casino that night. I am the Juggernaut.
Hulk smash.
Yeah, there's a scene in one of your stories, where Kodiak does his shift while in like a free fall and heavily armed.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like in my head, I could hear the thump when he hit the ground. That's one of those things. He lands next to you, you feel it. It sets off a seismograph someplace.
When I wrote that scene, just for comic effect, the thought ran through my head of Margolin doing something similar to what Deadpool did. Superhero landing! Oh, superhero! But I thought better of it. I thought, no, that'll cheese it up. I don't want to do that.
You said thump, Steve. It'd be more like what's the big mortar? 122?
Yeah, more like a 155 cooking off. The ground just shit goes.
Well, that was one of those scenes where the soundtracks we were talking about spun up in my head, and that Down with the Sickness was in my head when the scene starts as they do a little presentation. And
in time with the rotors.
Well, when the cargo door opens up, I was hearing that like the monkey call, from that song, and so it just totally fit. The rhythm of everything fit, and I always hear really like ridiculous heavy metal, kill the puppies music. Anytime the Monrotus and D.A are fighting, for whatever reason, I picture because they're not human. I picture their pace of their fighting being too fast.
Very hard to track.
Very hard to track. It's like watching Jason Bourne, where they have everything. And so for whatever reason, it needs that heavy rock beat behind it to make sense to me. I don't know why.
It's some Japanese anime like Naruto shit going on.
Possibly.
Almost speed metal.
Yeah, speed metal is more what I was thinking.
Now you're talking about Kodiak hitting the ground. Yeah. I don't know whether you two are familiar with this, but I'll give you a good example. A forklift tire blowing out.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I've seen that happen. I used to be a forklift driver years ago before I went into law enforcement.
Now wait a minute, which type of forklift? I'm talking big 8-foot forks moving lumber around.
I've driven everything from a 12.5 ton dual front axle heister for an outdoor lift, all the way down to just your stand up reach trucks. I've driven pretty much everything.
Well, I won't diss nobody. I'm just clarifying myself because most time people think forklift, they think a little ass tow motor. No, this is a Heister 190.
I've driven the big Heisters with the enclosed cab way up high. Yeah.
Oh, it's not climb up.
You got to climb up. Well, you got to climb a short ladder to get up to it. 3 steps.
Yeah, but D.A. shorter than you are. It's a big ladder. No.
Now you want to talk about big
short ladder?
You want to talk about a short ladder? That's a case loader. That big old case loader, 621C. Now that's a big damn loader we've got.
I had that big Heister, and I went to pick up some osmium dies it's a tool and die company, and I went to pick them up, and I start lifting it, and I felt my position change. I started leaning forward, and I'm like, this isn't lifting. It's lifting the back end of this. I'm like, okay, let's put that back down.
Yeah, osmium's a rare earth metal.
My dad has done that. Unloading trucks, he gets in a damn hurry, and he'll try and pick up 2 packs of 12 green from another sawmill. He about effed up about 2 months ago. He started trying to take off and
went to cut the wheels, and the wheels aren't doing anything.
No, it's more like he's trying to pick it up, and the damn forklift is doing like this and backing up. It's like no. Back up, set it back down the damn thing, and get one pack at a damn time. I don't feel like picking this shit up and manhandling it 3 or 4 times.
When I was about 17, my dad had me go pick up a load of lumber when they were adding on a deck. And I had an old Ford F-100, 1974 Ford 3-speed on the column. And I went and picked up the load of lumber, and they loaded it into the back of the truck. And when I went to leave the parking lot, I got into second gear, getting ready to pull out of the parking lot, and I started cutting the wheels, and the truck's still going forward. And I'm like, whoa! I stopped, and I felt the front end kind of coast back down, and I waited until the front tires went to the ground, and then I slowly left the parking lot, and I did about 20 miles an hour all the way to the house, because every time I would try to accelerate, the front tires would come off the ground, or when I'd go to make a corner, I had to slow to a crawl, otherwise the front tires would just barely get enough grip to get around the corner. I was like, I am massively overloaded.
Yeah. Now you want to talk about it? You want to talk about a pucker factor with a damn forklift? Besides that, is have a damn load on the forks and the damn chain snap on the thing. Have you ever seen that one, D.A.?
Yeah. Also had a load up high that I didn't put there. There was another driver put it there, and there was two my lift and another lift moving stuff. And I went to pull in underneath to set something down, and the stanchion collapsed and dropped 3 skids on my roof. And I was like, okay, it didn't come in.
Assume turtle form.
Yeah, they had to come over and dig me out because I couldn't move. I had product all over me. And they opened the door, and he's like, Doug, you okay? I'm like, gotta go to the bathroom right now. She's like, you okay? I'm like, possibly shit myself. I don't know. I gotta go check.
Like I said, my dad had his. He's got the big 190. There was a 190 at the time he was doing. We were loaded to go to South Carolina, and he pulled it out of the shed, and I throwed the cross pieces. No sooner had he turned the damn forklift around to get lined up with the truck, had it up in the air about 4 or 5 feet. The damn chain snapped, and it just. I
That's
was like,
a bad day.
And it was 12 foot. It was 4 packs of 12 foot 6x6s.
That is a bad day right there.
8 wide, 4 high, 8 foot across on the forks. So you do the math on the weight.
Oh my God.
It was not pretty.
No, I would imagine not.
But
it's funny how. Oh, go ahead.
But getting back to what started this damn rabbit trail, you talk about a forklift tire letting go. My cousin had one of the older ones, and he parked the damn thing, and the damn tire blew. All you saw was a dust cloud envelop the whole damn lift. And you get over there and look, and it's a freaking crater like this underneath where the tire let go at.
I was driving one of those, the smaller forklift. I was on a loading dock. I was loading a truck, and had a guy come in, backed his trailer in, and I said, "You get it chalked for me?" He says, "Oh yeah, it's all taken care of. You're ready to start." And so I'm like, "Okay." So I grab the first skid and I go shooting onto the back of his truck. And when I get to the far end of the trailer, and I set the load down and hit my brakes, and I felt it shift. And I look back and I'm 5 feet from the dock. I'm like, me, beep, 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 beep. Like, get out of here and get this truck back against the dock. He's like, "Oh, I thought I chalked that." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I asked you."
Yeah. Oh,
God.
It was funny. We were back when I was living at home with my parents. Every year, my mom would have my dad do some kind of landscaping project for her. You know, my mom her yard was a work in progress for 20 damn years, and so of course it's always something. Dad would take a week's vacation, and we get recruited as slave labor, and so he had built this.
It's called voluntold.
Voluntold. There you go. Yeah, you're guilted. We'll use that. Let's be more accurate. But he would build these boxes out of, landscaping timbers and fill them up with dirt. And he would go to one of these places and pick up some rock, to fill the landscaping with. Well, we didn't own a truck. I think at the time we had a sedan and a station wagon. But one of our neighbors had a pickup, and he had this Ford F-150 stick shift. And I don't remember how many gears the damn thing had, but it shifted on the floor. And we got to this place to pick up this rock. And F-150 half-ton pickup. I don't know a lot about trucks, but I assume that means it's rated to carry 1,000 pounds of cargo. Well, we go out to this place, and they come up with a front loader, and they drop the rock into the thing, and it squats down to the axle. And we drive out of there, and there's 1,800 pounds of rock in the back of this truck. And it literally looked like one of those, cartoons. When he took off out of the place, the studded tires that he had on there were rubbing the fender, and so the whole way home, we were doing this as the wheels were turning on this. And we're driving like 25 miles an hour down the highway, past the thing, because it wouldn't do any faster than that. And then it didn't want to go into the gears. Every time we try to put it into gear, it's like it would lug. And I think we spent like 6 hours shoveling out the back of that stupid pickup truck onto a tarp on our driveway. And, as we're shoveling out, it just gradually rising back up. Thank God he didn't screw up the guy's truck. But I
probably blew the cylinders on the shocks out.
I don't know. The neighbor was a good family friend. He never bitched about it. So if we did damage, he either didn't care or we didn't damage it. But yeah, that was the terrifying thing. I was about 13, 14 years old. I was riding shotgun with Dad down there. And I don't know what was scarier, watching Dad shift, because I'd never seen him drive a standard, or thinking that the axles were just going to fall off like a cartoon.
I learned to drive a standard pretty young. So
I can't drive one. I have tried. My brother has a CDL, and he can drive anything with wheels on it. He drove for Interstate Battery for a long time. I mean, you name it, he could drive it. And,
I've got a Class E.
Yeah, he tried to show me this on this old S10 that he had. It was kind of just he called it his F around car. He spent like $500 in this thing. It was a POS, but it was for him to just jolly around town. And I think at one point he cut the cab off of it and made a convertible. It's just stupid high school crap. But it was a 3-speed, and he was trying to show me how to drive it. And I probably spent an hour trying to get the thing to take off on a hill. And I kept dumping the clutch over and over and over again. I burnt out the clutch in it. And the whole time I'm driving, every time I would dump it, he would laugh his ass off. And then I restart it, and then I'd get and he'd laugh his ass off. And when I ripped the clutch out of it, you could just smell it like it burnt. And he laughed so hard because it was on its way out anyway. He didn't care. I could have totaled it and he wouldn't have cared. But he laughed so hard at me. That was my one and only time trying to drive a standard. So
I learned to drive a standard on an old beat up farm truck. And you had pretty much just wrap that thing out to get it to go anywhere. It was on its last legs. It was just used for rousing about the farm, hauling hay and crap. And then my brother Bill rebuilt a '67 Chevelle with a 4-speed, with a Muncie 4-speed, and this thing was built to run. Right. And the first time I drove that, I was like afraid to give it gas. And he's like, "Oh, just treat it like the farm truck. Just give it some gas." I'm like, "Okay." So I dropped the clutch the same way I did on that old farm truck, and the next thing I know, I'm like cutting the wheels because I'm going, smoke billowing out everywhere. I finally get the wheels, fight control of the wheel, get the car stopped, and I look over at him, and he goes, "Maybe a little less on the gas this time."
Nice. Well, it's funny when you get used to driving a certain vehicle. I've had the Buick now long enough that I've gotten used to the really light touch that it has. Mm-hmm. I decided to take the battle taxi out this morning because I wanted to get the fluids up in it. One, I learned that if you let a car sit long enough, the master cylinder will slowly lose pressure. And so you know how hilly my parking lot is, right? Mm-hmm. So I back the car out and I go to leave the parking lot. I put the brakes down and the pedal went almost to the floorboard and it still wasn't stopping.
Did you pump it a few times?
I did. I was like, we had pumped right up after 2-3 pumps and it was fine. But, it hadn't been running about 2 weeks. And I noticed that compared to the acceleration I'm used to with the new vehicle, I have to stand on the damn thing to go anywhere. I was like, I never noticed it had that problem with Get Up before.
Hey, D.A.
Yes, sir.
I was watching the interview you did with Sean Chester the other week, and you got asked the question about writing from the monster's perspective. Mm-hmm. That was a yes/no question, not just a strictly no.
Oh, okay. I've never done it.
We've got the Irishman.
Well, true. So I
That's
guess
why I said yes/no.
I guess I will be kind of doing that with the coming books. But I don't really see Logue much as a monster as much as just a powerful asshole.
I was going to say Logue is just an asshole. Yeah. He's an amazing asshole, but he's an asshole.
Well, I guess the same could be said for the rest of the natives. I mean, the Hotometaneo, they're all technically, they can all change.
Well, and I guess, Micah is kind of an asshole.
Yeah. At least he's a funny asshole, though.
Oh, I love Micah. Knowing where we are in the story now and then going back to Grey Eagle's first meeting of Micah, it makes it even funnier. It's it's funny how friendships form like that. My buddy Rick that I mentioned earlier, he was a friend of a friend. And when I got divorced, I had met him like once or twice when I divorced my first wife. And he's like, you need a place to crash. He had this house and wanted a roommate. And I'm like, yeah. And I remember when the day I met him, I thought he was such a dick because, he's an awesome dude, but he is your stereotypical textbook perception of special forces. You're either in his flock or you're not worth his time. And
acquired taste, is that what the word you're looking for?
Well, I guess he liked me more than he did. I thought he hated my guts, honestly. It was just one of these. I got the impression he just didn't like me. And then he offered me a place to stay. I'm like, okay. And so the more I got to know him, the more I kind of went from not liking, maybe even kind of fearing him a little bit to, thinking of him like a brother,
Rick and I hit it off right off.
Well, you also served in the military, though. I mean, I never served.
I've got that. I guess I have to a certain extent that same direct asshole quality at times.
When you're
of a feather.
You were always very polite.
Birds of a feather.
Pretty much.
Well, you were always very polite and professional when I worked with you at the hospital. And of course, as we became friends, then we became more unprofessional, but like my professional interactions with you were always very positive. And everybody that I've talked to that, that knew you and, knows that you're gone always has really good things to say about how nice you were and everything like that. And, but then I hear the stories of like your CO days. I'm like, he's a bigger asshole than I am. Yeah, but he's an asshole I call my brother, so it's okay.
You have no idea, Steve.
Follow up with Sean Chesser. Steve was talking about the zombie apocalypse, and it's just like Steve is like, you just know you're screwed because you're on the front lines. Virus breaks out. More than likely, your zombie Chinese food.
Well, I'm on the front lines in an urgent care because I never know what's going to come through the door there. Most of the COVID cases that we diagnosed in our health system came through my urgent care. So I know I'm going to be like, patient 1 after patient 0 bites my ass. And then when everything goes down, I'm a type 1 diabetic. When the insulin goes away, I live a month or 2. Let's be honest. And so, it is very, very telling. And I'd like to think I would know what to do, but, I don't know. It amuses me at this point. When I was in nursing school, I was just starting to discover the zombie genre. And we had the simulation center over at Cox North where they can, work with these very high-end, like 6-figure mannequins and things that react, like a live person would and everything like this. You program to do things.
Yeah, I almost shot one of those one night.
Oh my God. So my instructor was trying to teach us how a code would go. And so she's in the little control room, programming the thing to do its stuff. And I don't know what she screwed up, but we're sitting there doing the exercise and we get the telemetry on the mannequin, and it's in PEA, pulseless electrical activity. So it has no heartbeat, but the heart muscle hasn't completely died, so it's just like static, on the EKG. Well, there's a protocol, you give up an effort and then shock it. Well, when you're in pulseless electrical activity, you're essentially dead. Mm-hmm. Your heart just doesn't know it yet. So you're not conscious, you're not speaking, you don't have your eyes open. Any of this. So the thing goes in PEA, we're hooking up everything to get ready to defibrillate it, and the thing moans. Being the dumbass that I am, I took my hemostat that I had in my pocket, and I said, "Not on my watch, Walker," and I stuck it in the ear. My classmates thought it was hysterical. Instructor, not so much. And she goes, "You realize that cost $115,000, right?" And I was like, okay.
I do now.
I didn't hurt it. It was a clamp, it wasn't anything sharp. And, I had ear canals or whatever. But I was like, okay, if it's pulseless and it starts moaning, that would save my life.
I was walking rounds over there at North one time when I was was still security over there. And I don't know if one of your medical students thought it was funny or what, but they put one of those stupid mannequins in a wheelchair and set it facing the door. And I found a door unsecure. So I swing the door open and I step inside and it goes, ah! I cleared leather and lit that thing up with my light. I was like, Jesus Christ! And I walk out the hallway shaking. I put my gun away and I look back in and I'm like, holy crap, I almost killed that thing. And because I thought it was a person because it moaned at me. And I mean, I was taking up slack on the trigger. I almost shot that thing. And it scared the living hell out of me. And I'm like,
had the shiver and shits the rest of that night, did you?
D.A., did you have Ray Stevens sitting up in the dead playing in the back of your head?
So, I had the theme from The Walking Dead playing in the back of my head. So I thought I just found a zombie. North is haunted. It legitimately is.
Oh, it is scary as hell.
And for that to happen, I know one of the students did that on purpose because it was sitting in a wheelchair facing the door. And as soon as that door opened, it responded. And oh my God. And so what do? I'm like, 02 to 01. Go ahead, 02. Yeah, I think I got somebody up here on the third floor. Could you come up here and help me look for people? And they're like, yeah, I'll be right there. So I go to the far end of the hallway. I'm like, and when he popped in the hallway, hey, you take the doors on this side. I'll take the doors on this side. He's like, okay. And he opened the door and it moaned and he had the exact same reaction. Oh my God. And then it was funny, but it wasn't funny when it happened to me.
Write that report up. So why was the mannequin shot not once but twice?
Well, I didn't shoot it, but it was a very near thing.
This is why you are an asshole, Doug, because somebody does something to you and you think to yourself, this is the most horrible thing somebody could do. Let me call my friend. Let's do him.
Somebody else has to experience this now.
No, that's me at the lumber company. I've thought of nefarious ways to get it to workers. The most prevalent one I've thought of, well, two of them. We've got an outhouse for them to use. Replace, and they like to go hide down there. The biggest one I thought of is replace the toilet seat with one of them brushed stainless steels like what's in the jailhouse.
Speaking of those porta potties, we pulled a prank on a guy I used to work with. We tied fishing wire to the inside of the door of the porta potty and tied it around the head of a rubber snake and dropped it down in the toilet. And when he going over there, he swung the door open and the snake launches out of the toilet at him.
Oh my God!
I think
now you give me ammunition, Doug.
I think he almost broke escape velocity when he turned around and ran. I'm pretty sure his feet were getting higher off the ground the farther he ran.
God.
The last 50 yards or so, I'm pretty sure his feet weren't even on the ground. He was hauling ass.
Oh my God! He asked the scene very quickly.
It's a good thing he wasn't armed because he would have shot it. Tie some light gauge fishing line around the head of a rubber snake and drop it down, tie it to the inside of the door, drop the snake in the porta potty. They open that thing and the snake launches out of the toilet.
Now you just give me ideas, Doug.
Oh, we were terrible to each other, man. We used to pull crap like that on each other all the time.
But where my idea was going, well, it's getting summertime, 85, 90 degrees, brushed shiny stainless steel. Yeah, you ain't staying in there long.
Yeah, it's gonna get hot.
Hot ain't the word.
When I was an officer, we would sneak into the officer. We didn't do this to anybody but other officers. We would sneak into the locker room where most of the officers went to take a crap, and we'd put pepper spray on the toilet seat, then wipe it off, so it was just a layer. And they'd go in there, be in mid drop. And they'd be like, why's my ass burning? They'd come out of the bathroom mad as hell, too.
Now you talk about cartoons earlier, Steve. We got a new product in. It's called a wall photo panel. And I was sitting there fooling with the damn thing.
Of course you were.
Because somebody ordered the damn thing, so this is the first time I was seeing it. So I'm sitting there fooling with it, and I get the damn thing done. It's just simple. It's just a little hard plastic frame. You snap it apart, put the picture in, put a backing on it, snap it back together, put it in the box, and away you go. But the funny part was the name of the company that made the damn thing. Acme. I saw that. I saw that. I about rolled in the floor. It's like, well, I guess damn coyotes did, and violent. And they say it's too violent of a cartoon now, so they gotta make picture frames.
Yeah, the Acme thing cracks me up. I follow that readers and general tomfoolery Facebook page, and that cracks me up so much. And somebody posted a picture of a rock slide, and it just had this big boulder covering like one lane of traffic, and the caption says $100 says there's a coyote underneath this. And I laughed so hard, and I was, and of course I'm flipping through my phone while everybody's home, and I'm just laughing my ass off. And Rachel's like, "What's so funny?" And I showed it to her, and she barely batted an eye. And I'm like, "It's funny." And she goes, "Don't you get? Yeah, I get it. It's not that funny." I'm like, "It's hysterical." And she's like, just rolls her eyes. She was kind of the whole, "You're stupid."
I get the same reaction from Burnett.
Did I send you that picture with the cat and the mouse, Doug?
Maybe.
The mouse is drawn down on the cat.
Oh yeah, he says 6 shots, 9 lives. You do the math.
I love it.
When I was an officer at Greene County, we had in the break room we had those old style snack machines, like the sandwich machines. You put like 50 cents in, you open the door, grab your milk, and then you hit the button to cycle over. Yeah, it's spring shut. We would have these guys would come in and take off their duty belt and drop it on one of the tables, and they'd go outside to smoke or whatever. We'd be like, "Oh, you're just going to leave your duty belts." We'd buy a sandwich or something and roll their duty belt up, stuff it in there, and they had to come buy their duty belt back. We'd take the handcuffs out, put them in the milks, and we'd spend a couple of bucks buying like milk and stuff, and then they'd have to come back. We're like, "What's all my crap in the sandwich machine?" Well, you're going to buy it back now, aren't you?
Oh my God.
I can't take the credit for that. I got the idea from one of my lieutenants that had been doing it for years. Lieutenant Jenkins. I guess they did it for years before I ever even started there. And he told me this story, and I'm like, I'm totally gonna do that.
That'd be amazing. Well, all that crap on a duty belt. I mean, you could spend $10 trying to get all your shit back.
Yeah, the first thing they'd drop their belt and they'd walk out, and I'd look around the room like, "All right, who's got change?"
That's awesome.
Very terrible.
Oh, I am shocked sometimes by the amount of gear that law enforcement carries around. I mentioned my brother is the consummate Eagle Scout, so he's always over prepared. But when he got his new interceptor vehicle, it's like it's a Ford Explorer, but it's not.
Yeah, the interceptor variant.
Yeah. He was showing me, and there's like all these compartments they would open up that had things in them. There's like plate carrier, helmet, crap ton of ammo, crap ton of loose boxed ammo, all those stuff. And at one point I was just screwing around because he was showing the stuff up, and I was like putting it all on. So I was acting like I was trying to deploy with everything he had in the car. And so I had his plate carrier, and then I had one of his other bulletproof vests under that, so it was like double vested, and I had the helmet, and I had the gun, and I held it in the mags. I had something like 12 mags of 5.56 on me, plus I had the duffel bag with the loose stuff over my shoulder. I had the shotgun. I was like, I couldn't even walk. I'm a 240-pound man, and I was like encumbered trying to walk away from this vehicle. And I was like, no way in hell. And he told me, he rattled off how much weight it was.
Did you have a sign on that says, "Wally's bitch"?
Personal caddy.
It was funny. I think we figured out that it weighed probably about 100 pounds, what I had on me. And he was like, well, a typical infantry, soldier deploys with like, 85-pound ruck on him. I'm like, bullshit. He's like, no.
You ain't kidding. No. That's in addition to body armor and weapon and ammo.
Well, yeah. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm a 240-pound guy, 6 feet tall. I'm average size or bigger. And I'm like, oh, hell with this. And then I'm picturing them in some sandbox someplace, walking with this stuff like the Iron Golem.
One year when my boys were little, the boys were all picking out Halloween costumes. And my youngest son, Noah, wanted to be a SWAT operator. And we couldn't find a SWAT Halloween costume. He's like, but that's what I want to be. I'm like, all right, we'll hook you up. So we bought a cheap plastic M16. Like you squeeze the trigger and he goes like that.
I think I had that gun.
Yeah. We got that for him. The rest of the gear was mine. He had a set of my soft armor on. We just like tucked it in and then Velcroed it on. And he had a little duty belt I'd shortened to put around his waist. And he had a pair of black sweatpants on and some little boots. And boys were going door to door. And I was standing behind the boys watching them. And the boys go up and ringing the doorbell. And this lady's like, oh, you guys are so cute. She's giving them candy. And her husband looks at my son and he kind of sidesteps. And he sidesteps again. And he steps past the boys. And he sidesteps over to me. He goes, your kid's wearing real shit. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, what department are you with?
That's awesome.
Dude, he was with Nixa PD. And so we sit there and shout the shit for about 5 minutes. And he's like, honey, hook those kids up. She's like,
I love it.
Just give him a ton of candy. He's like, holy crap. That's the first time I've seen a kid show a real body armor on.
That's great.
I thought you were going to say you were trick-or-treating in a rough neighborhood, or option 2, the husband was sidestepping because he had warrants.
One time I got off duty. Like right as the boys were going out to trick or treat. And I told my wife, I said, just go ahead and start trick or treating with the boys. And as soon as I get clear of the department, I'll just catch up with you. Just tell, shoot me a text, tell me where you're at.
Right.
So I found out what neighborhood they were in and I found them. And I was riding with a buddy of mine, just had him drop me off there. And so I was still in uniform, had my duty belt on and everything. And my wife's like, I'm glad you're here. I'll follow in the car. You walk with the boys. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking along with the boys and letting them go up to ring doorbells. And I'm just kind of staying back by the curb. And my boys go shooting up a sidewalk to ring a doorbell. And this guy and his wife walk up with a little girl and a little boy. And they've kind of followed the boys. And I'm just standing there waiting for the boys. And the dad was dressed like a hillbilly with the big hillbilly hat and the overalls and a big pillow stuffed down the front of the overalls. So he looked like a big fat hillbilly. And he was just sitting there and he looks over at me and does this. And he looks over at me again. He goes, wow, that's a really good costume. Where did you get that? I went, Greene County Sheriff's Office. He's like, oh, you're the real deal. I'm like, yeah, I'm not in costume. I just got off duty.
That's awesome. Your kids get a police escort.
It wasn't the first time.
Note yourself. Do not do stupid shit around Mr. Roberts. He is the law.
One night I was 1 year I was trick-or-treating with the boys, and I was off duty that year. So I was just wearing like jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm walking the boys through this neighborhood, and they're collecting candy, and this guy and his wife, and they were a younger couple, and they had a little girl. She was probably 4. They come walking up, and the little girl's dressed like a cop, and dad is dressed like an old school jail guard, with the weird hat and everything, and mom is dressed like a prisoner, but it's kind of the skimpy prisoner outfit.
Uh-oh.
Well, he's got an
inmate.
Yeah, naughty inmate. Well, he's got her handcuffed in the front, and they're standing there, and she goes, "It's starting to get a little chilly." He's like, "Yeah, it is a little bit." She goes, "These cuffs are getting cold. Will you take them off of me?" And he goes, "I didn't bring the key to those." And she goes, "Well, I don't have any place to put a key. Where's the key?" He's like, "I don't even know if I have a key to those. I thought those were the fake ones." She goes, "No, these are real." I just reached in my pocket, took my keys out, grabbed my cuff key, reached over and undid the cuffs for her. Didn't say a word. Just put my keys back in my pocket. My boys come down and I just smile and wave at them and walk off. And as I'm walking away, I hear her go, "Why was that man carrying a cuff key?" And I just didn't say a word, just kept walking.
Oh.
That's what I tell Dad. It's like, you don't make fun of the damn pack rat. Eventually, you'll need something, and I've got it. So shut the hell up and leave the pack rat alone.
Yep. I got to finally use, in an official capacity, that cuff key I got from you there, Doug. We had Greene County showed up with a guy that they had picked up just on the edge of town, I guess, and he needed to be seen in the urgent care, and he had infection in his legs. Well, they had him cuffed, and he was cuffed in front, but he was cuffed.
Yeah.
And well, the doctor wanted the cuffs off of him to examine him further, because they were there anyway. There were two cops that dropped the guy off. The one that left had the key. And for whatever reason, even though this guy was in uniform, he had no cuff key on him, which was odd.
At any given time in uniform, I had 7 keys on me.
Well, I was going to say my brother carries at least 3 or 4. He's like literally has no key, and the doctor's getting kind of pissed. And I couldn't resist. I'm like, and I reached in my pocket, pulled my keychain out, I popped the cuffs off, and I walked out of the room. The doctor follows me out, and he goes, "How did you unlock his handcuffs with a handcuff key?" And he's like, "You carry a handcuff key?" I said, "Well, yeah, don't you?" And I just played it off. He's like, and so like all night long, he's talking to me. It's like, "Yeah, Steve had a handcuff key on him." I just acted like it was nothing. And it was like, "How did you have a key to fit those cuffs?" They're universally keyed.
Yeah.
How do you even know that? I'm like, you leave my personal life out of this. And I walked up down the hall. That was the end of it.
This is my favorite cuff key. On one end, you can see it's got a cuff key. The other end has got it's got the clip. The other end is a window punch, and it's got a spring on it. So you pull the spring out and let it go, and the window will go poof.
Oh,
that was my favorite cuff key. I've probably got 25 or 30.
Well, I just thought it was funny because the only other time I'd use my cuff key is for that humorous photo we did at my wedding, where they cuffed me up, and I think we used your cuffs.
Yeah, those were my cuffs.
But yeah, it was just kind of funny though. And when I dropped the line about my personal life, the doctor kind of looks at me, and the nurse who was working with my partner just laughing her ass off because she knew that how I got the key and that I had a little bit of a connection to law enforcement at some point. But yeah, it was funny.
That always cracks me up. I can't tell you the number of times that I've got called down to the ER because an agency brought a prisoner in to be checked, and the officer didn't have a cuff key. It was usually one of the little agencies from somewhere around Springfield. Man, those guys are like Swiss Army knives. Those guys have got 14 keys on them, one hidden in each boot, 2 in their belt, 1 in their hat band. I mean, those guys have got keys everywhere. Greene County's usually got 3 or 4, but it's usually the little ones, like Douglas County would come in like, "I drove this guy 3 hours up here to get him cleared, and I didn't bring a cuff key." Why not? Why do you not have 2 or 3 on you? I guess I just forgot it. Like, okay.
Well, and if something happened to the guy, the cuffs are metal.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't defibrillate a guy wearing handcuffs. It's shorts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they had to code the guy'd die. He'd spark really pretty before he did, but
either you shock him anyway and defend him good.
Well, you put the pads on him and defibrillate him, but he could summon Mjolnir. It was like,
hey, you don't need a defibrillator. Just take the cartridge off the taser, put it right on the taint. That'll wake him up. I'm up. Stop it.
Shock him through the cuffs. Is that what you're saying, D.A.?
We would get people, we'd arrest them, and they would immediately have a seizure. And it was usually pretty fake. They'd do something like, "I'm about to have a seizure." And then they'd fall down and start shaking. I'm like, yeah, that's not a seizure. So I got to where I'd do a sternum rub, and most of the time they'd go, "Quit doing that," because I didn't do it gently. Once in a while, you'd get somebody that would write out a sternum rub. And I brought more than one out by doing something that I don't think it's exactly in the rule book, but they're faking like they're having a seizure, and you take your finger and flip them on the eyeball, they will come out of that in an instant, like, ah!
Yeah, that'll work.
The eyeball flip.
The nipple twist works pretty well too. but it's not officially sanctioned.
I brought one guy out of a seizure over at Cox North. I'm like, he's seizing, quick, cath him. No.
Yep.
Like, you don't do a catheter for a seizure, dude. Don't worry. Oh, dude, you scared the hell out of me.
I watched an ER doctor one time flip a guy in the nut.
Oh.
The guy claimed to be seizing. He was there in a hospital gown, and he literally, the dude's got, his legs kind of spread. He's got the gown on. The doc goes up and goes, pop, right on one of his nuts. And the dude let out this, it sounded like he was, return calling Sasquatch. Oh. You heard this? Whoop!
That'll get you.
He sat bolt upright. I'm like, he's cured. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. Well, boys, we're a little over 3 hours. Now I need to take the Browns to the Super Bowl. So I probably got to get off here.
Well,
sorry, folks.
It's funny that it took me a minute to process the fact that's exactly what Gamboa did. He's like, yeah, I got to piss now. We're done.
Yeah. So I probably ought to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully we didn't freak too many people out talking, cop talk and acting like idiots. Of course, if you guys have listened to us more than once, you're probably used to it. Josh, thanks for joining us. I want to thank Allen Gamboa for coming on. And if you guys haven't checked out his stuff, links are in the chat. And appreciate you guys joining us. And tune in next week on D.A. Ex Machina when we have author Jamie Hernandez on the show. Steve, you're probably not going to be with us next week.
Yep, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to go see the rents. And I will try to tune in and watch it and give you guys a hey, howdy. But unfortunately, the internet connection at Mom and Dad's is a little too sketchy.
Not a problem.
It wouldn't work. So,
yeah, it is what it is. Enjoy your time. We'll have to get together sometime here soon and go out and grab a drink and some dinner.
Yeah,
Josh?
a drink or 5 and a beverage.
Drink or 6. Josh, thanks for joining us, and I appreciate you guys being here. Hope you guys have a great night, and you all be safe.
General.
See you guys next week.
Thank you for joining us tonight on D.A. Ex Machina. Follow D.A. on social media and check out all his work at www.daroberts.net. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.